Welcome back to the 411 Podcasting Network. I'm your host, Larry Csonka, and this is episode 93 of the 411 on Wrestling Podcast. You can follow us on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Play, YouTube, the 411mania.com website, any major podcasting platform. Please make sure to subscribe to our show, share us around on social media, hit the thumbs up and subscribe on YouTube to take us to the pay window. We would greatly appreciate it. Joining me today, making his return, he's becoming a regular contributor. He's my good friend from BackBodyDrop.com, Ian Hamilton. Ian, how are you this afternoon, sir?
I'm not too bad, Larry. All the better for actually having a decent episode of NXT UK this afternoon. And guess that's our theme for today.
It is, Ian, and that is specifically why you're on. Obviously, you are kind of my guru and guide through the UK scene, all the stuff I don't know about. And, you and I are two of approximately four people that regularly cover NXT UK every week and actually put effort into following it. And obviously, we enjoy a lot of the talent there. We enjoy a lot of the matches. The takeover stuff has been really good. But overall, and we've kind of talked about it on these shows when we've been going off and like kind of segues and sideways type things about just the NXT UK brand as a whole. The running joke of it's not actually a brand that exists even though it does. And people have kind of wanted us to expand on that. So today we're kind of, I guess the basic conversation for us is NXT UK, and for lack of a better title, the birth, the lack of growth, and the overall issues with the brand, as well as kind of the impact on the UK indie wrestling scene, which has, despite Pete Dunne's assertions, has been great.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we can start with the idea of NXT UK. Folks who've just gotten into wrestling or the indie scene may think, oh, it's only just come up from 2016 when they first start talking about the United Kingdom Championship. Actually, it's an idea that's been around since the mid-noughties. If you've got some of the old observers, these are the ones just before Dave merged with the Figure 4 website. There's a mention in June 2007 Observer that mentioned talk of a WWE UK brand. Now, that didn't go anywhere. They were talking about working with a company called RQW. That was an indie based largely out of London and South England. Real quality wrestling. At the time, they'd been running for maybe about a year. Bit of background on them. So before RQW, a lot of Brit-Res, or the post-2000s Brit-Res, was probably popularised by a company called the Frontier Wrestling Alliance. They were based out of Portsmouth. They'd started running shows pretty much all across the country, but like a lot of quote-unquote fads, had the boom and bust. They had gone under. RQW had tried to take their spot. But it wasn't until 2006 before they got any kind of traction. They started running holiday camps. Late 2006, they had a rebirth and started running places like York Hall. The first real exposure I had to them, or any kind of knowledge, was in 2007. So another company that was kind of big at the time was 1PW, which there's literally been books written about the shit show that company turned out to be. But the big thing RQW did was with Great Muta. So 1PW had a show start of 2007 with Great Muta advertised. I bought tickets for it, but because 1PW was hemorrhaging money and other stuff I'm not going to make accusations for. Like I say, there's a book, I think it's called All or Nothing by On Furious Kayfabe. You'll be able to read for yourself. It's available all the usual spots. But they couldn't afford Great Muta. He'd already paid to fly over here, but they couldn't afford to pay him for his booking. And to kind of say face on the UK scene, RQW pretty much took the Muta booking. And from what I remember, on maybe a week's notice, they announced, booked, and held a show at York Hall, which I think drew 350 fans, which by today's standards is laughable. But that's the kind of thing that RQW was doing. They were kind of saving the skin of Brit-Res. But yeah, they didn't really go anywhere. They taped stuff for TV. I don't think it aired anywhere mainstream, but they were trying to keep things going. They stopped running things about late 2007, late 2008, and yeah, for then the scene remained a little bit quiet. FWA, closed, reopened, closed again. Their last few shows, things in 2012, were in front of Comic Cons, which kind of tells you the market they were really gunning for was ultra casual fans. In the meantime, you had, like I say, One PW had multiple rebirths, another promotion, IPW UK. They were trundling along the background, but it wasn't really until 2012 when we started getting buzz back in the UK scene with the opening of a company called Progress. They started, the long-running joke with them is, nobody thought that wrestling would work in London, and they started running at a venue called The Garage, which is in North London. Holds about 350 people, but first show in 2012 sold out. They started running quarterly, and through time, you sell out shows regularly, you get buzz. And these weren't, shows, using, older names. Like some of the names we had on these early cards, you're looking like Will Ospreay, Zack Sabre Jr., Marty Scurll, Jimmy Havoc. In 2012, 8 years ago. So they had, future stars who were helping build the brand up. There's a lot more names we'll talk about later on. But they were quietly, building buzz themselves. And it's like anything when, it's a horrible analogy. Bear in mind we've had, bad flooding in parts of England this week, but, a rising tide raises all ships. So you had Insane Championship Wrestling up in Scotland. They had a documentary made by the BBC on them, which got buzz up there. Other promotions like Vital Pro, Attack, Pro Wrestling Eve, they all, I wouldn't say grew massively at that point, but started slowly getting a bit more buzz. And new promotion, Revolution Pro Wrestling, splintered out of IPW and started carving a name themselves. So, because you'd have to say because of Progress, you went from having pretty much a dead or a scene that was massively under the radar, apart from most hardcore fans, to a scene that was really starting to get, lapsed fans, for want of a better word.
And that's really interesting when you think about it, too, because where we are now, Progress is obviously in bed with WWE. They introduced a ton of these talents at the time that, as you said, they weren't relying on a bunch of older people. We're introducing, like Noam Dar, El Ligero, Zack Sabre Jr., Zach Gibson, Jimmy Havoc, and Ospreay. You're getting, like, all these new names out there. And then, as you said, you have these other promotions kind of branching out of that. And the scene is picking up. Real quick to go back to like the kind of birth of the NXT UK thing. You mentioned 2007 when the Observer specifically started mentioning the UK. I think if you actually go back to around 2005, though, there was mention of the more global expansion by WWE to where they were hoping to create almost like a worldwide territory system. And that's kind of where the UK thing fits in as well. And that's something Steve Cook and I were a big proponent of back in the day because, they eventually got rid of OVW. They had shut down Deep South, and then you just had Florida Championship Wrestling. And my big thing is you're never going to develop, and I'm talking about signing people with not a lot of experience in terms of developing them with just one little warehouse in Florida. And I was a big proponent of the kind of creating your own territory system, for lack of a better word, because the best part about when OVW and Deep South Wrestling were both running at the same time was occasionally they would swap talent. And that goes back to the comparison to the old school territory system was, yeah, that's great that you're doing good in Louisville and then you're starting to grow, and then if they ship you down to Georgia, can you still get over? And it's good to learn to work in front of different crowds. Because, at the time, you look back, you had a ton of inexperienced guys. You had Kofi Kingston down in developmental. You had Zack Ryder and Kurt Hawkins as the Major Brothers. You had, all kind of people down there. And it would have been really valuable for them to keep working more than just the one place. So it was always something I was interested in. And then, as you mentioned, there was kind of the mention of the NXT UK thing back in 2007, but then nothing really happened out of it for whatever reason.
Yeah, and again, you had the creation of all the new promotions. And when you got members back at that time, very few British or even European wrestlers were getting signed. I mean, you look TNA, you had Mark Andrews, Grado, Spud, Nick Aldis, Doug Williams. You had the British Boot Camp spin-off, which got a lot of exposure for guys like Shah Samuels, the late Chris Travis, to name just two. WWE, same kind of thing. Sheamus, Drew McIntyre. When NXT became a thing, had Adrian Neville and Oliver Gray. Pretty much that was pretty much restricted to that. And it was the kind of thing that, yeah, you had all these guys who were slowly getting buzz in the UK. They weren't going anywhere. WWE weren't signing. No, they were signing. Maybe one name every few years, and especially with WWE. You had Sheamus, Drew McIntyre, Wade Barrett. I think the three big ones they had for this new millennium. And you think, you will go back to the 80s and 90s. British Bulldog, Dynamite Kid, William Regal, if you want to put that asterisk on. The UK is hot and as big as it was as a market for them in terms of fans and audience. In terms of actually getting talent, that was a huge weakness. But yeah, that was kind of a sidebar, I guess, in terms of the talent's been there. TNA historically made more use of it in the, I'd say, the late noughties, early tens. But yeah, but going back to the birth of progress and of youth promotions, and I guess this isn't just wrestling, but anything. What happens when there's some kind of scene that starts getting a lot of buzz? Mainstream wants it. And what that meant was British wrestling started being courted by British television. Now, I think it was in 1983, Brit-Res was off TV when ITV kicked out of World of Sport. There wasn't much British wrestling on TV. Bravo, the old TV channel, broadcast the King of Europe tournament in 2002. That was some co-promoted thing with the TalkSport radio station. That was a tournament featured the likes of Brian Christopher and Eddie Guerrero and a lot of big names in Brit-Res at that time. But, since it was a one-off, didn't lead to anything until 2016. World Sport Wrestling, or WOS Wrestling they called it, ITV started making noises. They taped a pilot for it. And it kind of sat there for a little bit. And I'm just looking now at the lineup on that particular pilot. So this was November 2016. And some of the names you got on bench, I'm not picking these names out at random. I'm just saying these names that stand out. Dave Mastiff, Kenny Williams, Viper, the Coffee Brothers, Rampage Brown, El Ligero, Zach Gibson, Grado, Shah Samuels. It's like, those are names which were pretty big on the UK indies at that time. I wouldn't say, maybe not the top stars. Certainly no Zack Sabre Jr.'s there, no Will Ospreay's there, definitely no Jimmy Havoc's on a ITV tea time slot, but they were among the biggest names you had there. Problem was, the pilot aired on New Year's Eve 2016, and it got fine ratings, but the kind of ratings that would make you think twice about, do you want to give it a full series or not? It was that really awkward middle ground, and obviously airing on New Year's Eve, from what I remember today, it's like late afternoon, so just before people were starting to get ready for New Year's celebrations. Not the best spot, but it aired and it got fairly decent reviews. Gesundheit.
Thank you.
Yeah, but what was interesting was that World Sport pilot aired New Year's Eve. About 2 weeks before that aired, WWE announced they were creating the UK Championship Tournament, or the United Kingdom Championship. That was a 2-day tournament in Blackpool in January 2017, beg your pardon. And they had that big parade, I think it was the O2 in London, with a load of guys they'd signed. I mean, if you look for those two shows, you had Dan Maloney, who went in the system and left, but just picking out names who were still with WWE today. Jack Stars, the perennial enhancement guy. James Drake, Jordan Devlin, your best friend Joseph Connors, Mark Andrews, Pete Dunne, Sam Gradwell, who I think still on the injured list, but still under contract, so stick with that. Saxon Huxley, Trent Seven, Tyler Bate, Tyson T-Bone, Wolfgang. So that cluster of names just for championship tournament shows. There's a very solid bunch of names, and a few, haven't mentioned who were completely out of left field. Chris Tyler, H.C. Dyer, who I think's not even in the business anymore. Tucker, who's number one in and gone, early days of NXT UK. It's like they signed a lot of these guys to contracts competing with World Sport Wrestling, and at the time, the buzz was, well, yeah, this is something we've been planning for years. It's just a coincidence that this happened 2 weeks before ITV's product.
Just a coincidence.
And it was one line that a lot of people cling on to during all the press stuff from this. So obviously the announcement of this had quite a few promotions kind of worried. And there's a tweet from the former What Culture Pro Wrestling they put out when they were, because back then they were really in bed with the What Culture website, as you'd expect. And there's one line that came out which was very much a tell-all that a lot of people hang my hat on here. William Regal telling them there's no restrictions with our talent. So the impression they gave was any restrictions from wrestlers being used by promotions would come from that promotion, not WWE, which, as we'll see, absolutely wasn't the case.
Yeah, it absolutely wasn't. And this is, we've mentioned this before when we've talked about this brand, Ian, and there are still people that haven't learned from history. They haven't learned from Vince taking over the territories in the 80s. This is when the whole thing, WWE saw the World of Sport thing happening, and, hey, they're going to get on TV, so we need to kill this. Because we can't have anybody taking over this. We thought about this years ago. We need to kill it and take it over. So not only do you have the birth of NXT UK out of it, even though it didn't directly start out of it, we got the tournament, and then we had to wait a while until we had like another little tournament. But you had this happen, and also during this time, we had the amazing clusterfuck known as 5-Star Wrestling.
Oh, the early days of 5-Star Wrestling. So this was a company that was made kind of to promote a video game. I've played it very briefly. I wish I hadn't. It's one of those games which it's a wrestling game, but tries to live off of the Mad Magazine spoofs kind of thing, copyright trolling, what have you. They did a few house shows to build a video game, but then January 2017, they actually had a TV show aired on Spike TV in the UK, and for whatever reason, even though the promotion was called 5-Star, they decided to rebrand the TV show Dominant Wrestling, which, yeah, that's something, if you want to Google that, you may get some not safe for work results, but yeah, this particular show, it was a live house show from Dundee, which was a one-night tournament. I mean, by God, in 2017, we fucking loved tournaments in wrestling. God damn it, we did. And I've just pulled up the card for that on Cage Match, and some of the names he got in there. Zach Gibson worked a dark match against Jay Lethal. I'm looking down the tournament. You had John Morrison, Moose, Rey Mysterio, Nick Aldis, Carlito, PJ Black, Drew Galloway, Chris Masters. It's like, really, in the televised portion of the show, the only British guys were Drew Galloway, now Drew McIntyre, and Nick Aldis. So this was clearly a product aimed not at the people who rushing to buy tickets for Progress every month, or people going to ICW in Scotland. This was a much more casual market. And yes, this was it was a one-night, 8-man tournament, but John Morrison defended the 5-Star Wrestling belt throughout because, hey, why not? The end of the show was probably the most memorable part. So, like I say, it was a live broadcast, and Joe Moore was advertising a 128-man tournament as the company was going to do a big arena tour of the UK, except the announcement was cut short because they ran their time slot over. And to make it worse, the tournament itself didn't happen. Pretty much all the dates were either cancelled or rescheduled. There was one pretty nasty one where the Manchester Arena bombing took place, and Five Star tried to pin that as a reason for tickets not selling, which, if the British scene was getting any kind of visibility, that was probably would have ranked higher in the Observer's worst promotional tactic of the year award. But so Five Star Wrestling had a brief moment of glory in 2017 and died away. And coincidentally, with Five Star Wrestling not doing anything and World of Sport kind of in mothballs again, WWE UK also didn't do anything. The guys had a few matches on NXT. Pete Dunne had absolute cracker on TakeOver Chicago, but apart from that, it was random stuff on house shows and TV tapings and Saving Us from Enzo Amore, if you remember that.
Oh, Christ, I hated that episode. That was, yeah.
It's the first sighting out of Joe Connors.
I try to forget that time, but okay.
But yeah, they did do one TV taping. It was a 2-night thing from Norwich, which was just flat out weird. I mean, they didn't have the thing in Hall. They, from what I remember, they cut matches and put them on YouTube. They did a 1-hour special on the network that I can only remember because they had Jim Ross and Nigel McGuinness on a green screen pretending to be standing on the entrance stage, except they were standing flat and the ramp was so low angled, it was just made it look even more fake than it would have done. So yeah, that Norwich show, it got buzz from the people who were following, but it did nothing longer term. And so, Brit Rays, at least in the wider scene outside of the Progressors and their pros, went back to mothballs for the rest of 2017. 2018, though, completely different story. Five Star was back with a live weekly show on a channel called Free Sports. That's a not quite network, but one of these over the air free to view channels. You didn't need a subscription to get it. But their idea was weekly 3-hour shows in arenas across the UK Raw, pretty much.
And it should be noted that they were booking arenas that they had no chance to fill.
Absolutely not. No, I mean, I'll pull up our friend's cage match again. The fact that you can, all their events, they, like 5 Star, we're given a lot of, time to. They only held 10 shows in total as a promotion. But they were kind of a nagging little thing that sparked things off. But their TV run started February 2018. The Echo Arena in Liverpool, and I'm looking, of course, there's no tense figures, but a lot of arenas looked absolutely awful. I think the only one they filled was a show in Plymouth, which was a smaller building anyway. But yeah, it was 3-hour shows. I think these on Wednesday or Thursday nights. So you're asking people to go to midweek shows in big arenas with a lot of names that, let's be honest, probably weren't big stars. I mean, that first show in Liverpool, they had a bit high name value. John Morrison, Rob Van Dam, Jake Hager, probably the names you would know there, Moose. I mean, apart from that, again, I'm not picking names to pick on people, but Mark Haskins, Flash Morgan Webster, Rampage Brown, Zach Gibson, El Ligero, like names who are fairly big, but problem was because of the way they handled the 2017 tour, 5 Star Wrestling was a joke, and people did not give this any kind of credibility at all. Their last show, in fact, I mean, literally their run was February 1st, 2018 to March 1st, 2018. That last show was in Belfast, a show that was affected by a snowstorm that changed a lot of the card, and the actual broadcast portion of the show only had 3 matches, which is always great for a 2-hour show. There was more stuff that aired on the pre-show on Facebook than on TV. And your last match was Zach Gibson losing to Eddie Ryan in a tournament a match for a title that Zach had created, the real wrestling title, because at that point Jake Hager had won the main 5 Star belt. He wasn't going to be on every show. They wanted someone who would be. but rather than putting the big belt on someone who was going to be around, they just made a secondary one. But yeah, 5-star died a death. They'd spent all the money and then some. And yeah, 5-star lived on in pretty much my memory and about 2-3 others. I mean,
yeah, and the thing about 5-stars is just like, you look back on it, I mean, pretty much from day one, they had bad management. You look at the crowds, they didn't promote well at all. They decided that they were going to run these arenas that they had no viable way of filling. And then, like, at various times, they were spending too much money on fly-ins for guys that really still couldn't go all that well even a couple years ago, like RVD and stuff. And Jake Hager was fucking atrocious just coming off his WWE release, wearing his basketball shorts and looking like he couldn't give a single solitary fuck if it meant saving his wife's life. So it's just, this promotion was bad. Were they also the promotion? Were they the ones where the dude was trying to, quote unquote, offer CM Punk $1 million to come in to work the tournament?
Same guy.
Okay, I thought so. So yeah, just you mix all of this stuff in, and yeah, a disaster. I would love to know the figures on how much money they lost.
Well, luckily, I'm trying to find this up now. Well, I'll come back to this, but yeah, it was one of those companies which, had a lot more hot air than any output, really. I was just trying to find this. There's a company, this one called Company's House, which lists all this stuff. Let me see if we can find it. But, well, we can come back to that. But anyway, so 5-star shut down. The other thing which rose up in terms of mainstream TV at the time was the WS Wrestling. They were back and they taped stuff in May 2018, looking to get back on TV. They actually got a series, which took them long enough after that 2016 pilot. They taped in May 2018. The show aired, I think it was July 2018, so it brings a 12-week run. And all that noise about British wrestling on TV actually was picked up by somewhere, because WWE finally put NXT UK, finally did some of their toy boxing UK, and announced a second UK Championship tournament for June 2018 at the Royal Albert Hall in London. Much like Blackpool, it was a 2-night affair, but it was on, this thing's a Tuesday and Wednesday. I was at both those shows. And show 1 was a 1-night tournament to crown a new contender for Pete Dunne's title, which won by Zach Gibson. Night 2 was pretty much a glorified NXT house show. You had the Undisputed Era there. You had Mustache Mountain, they won the tag title, the proper NXT tag titles on that show. And yeah, it was one of those where the big story coming out of that wasn't Zach Gibson winning the tournament but coming up short. They announced the creation of NXT UK, the brand we know and somewhat love now. They announced tapings for the next month in Cambridge, but nothing about where it was being broadcast. For weeks, even after the show was taped, they were talking about, would Sky pick it up? Would ITV pick it up? In the end, it was only going to be a network product launched October 2018. And wouldn't you know it, Larry, something else was going to debut around about that same time.
It's amazing how that happens, because, people, nope, it's just a big coincidence all the time, and it always cracks me up when people say that. First of all, not only did NXT UK tape TV and end up on the network, but if we remember the early days, they doubled up for, 3 months, showing 2 hours every week because they had taped so much and never aired it.
Yeah, so they taped, I'm just going by my rough arithmetic here. So they taped in Cambridge. I want to say they taped Plymouth as well. But there's basically 3 sets of TV tapings already in the can when they launched. And yeah, NXT UK debuted on the WWE Network. I want to say it was a Thursday, no, it was Wednesday night, because they moved back when NXT and AEW started. 2 nights later, Rev Pro had their own TV deal, which went on Free Sports. And, hindsight's a wonderful thing, but that Rev Pro show was doomed before it got started. That was RevPro's TV thing. It was I think it was like filmed by Free Sports, so they own all the footage. But they pulled out all the stops in terms of talent. Like they had, I think the first match was Jushin Thunder Liger against Chris Brooks, from what I recall. Like that was the first RevPro match on TV. They had Roppongi 3K. They had Rocky Romero as well. So it's like, this wasn't just RevPro. This was the glossy RevPro that people think of when they see the results from York Hall shows. And yeah, it was just a huge coincidence that RevPro's TV had announced launch date and then they were undercut by NXT UK 2 days before. But as I say, the RevPro show was kind of doomed from the off. One, it wasn't advertised. Two, the name was far too close to WOS Wrestling, and it was intentional according to RevPro promoter Andy Quilden. The key thing, though, was that the guys at Free Sports wanted to have a stake in RevPro itself and potentially want to take it over if this whole wrestling thing worked out. It didn't. So they put zero effort into the show, and I think by the end of its run, they were doing the thing of changing time slots, airing it without advertising it. And I think I reviewed most of those weeks, but I think to this day, it was 1 week I wasn't able to review because it was aired at a time that wasn't advertised. So yes, that was the latest TV product that came and went. World of Sport Wrestling, that's kind of well known in the British scene where they had the Saturday afternoons. That was moved around. The TV program was fine, but was edited so much that it would be Kevin Dunn's wet dream. So many rapid cuts. They did a ladder match where they couldn't show ladders being used as weapons, which clearly something went awry there. So NXT UK debuted October 17th, 2018, I should say. And yeah, since then, it's kind of been a bit of a steamroll in the UK scene. Not to the point where it's killed companies. I know there's been a lot of people who have attributed NXT UK to companies closing, but just in terms of the effects it's had in terms of talent available and hurdles of a promotion's had to work around. I know we mentioned before the whole no restrictions line. Well, that kind of got a pretty big asterisk on with RevPro and Defiant having all of their WWE contracted guys yanked from them. I think they were yanked before the first TV tapings even happened. So it wasn't a case of, hey, we're running on TV, we need your guys. This was a decision they'd made before that first TV show was even recorded.
Exactly, and this hit RevPro hard, this hit Defiant hard, because you're losing like Jenny, Jordan Devlin, Flash Morgan Webster, Travis Banks, and people like that who were in established angles and everything, so they have to say goodbye. And as you said, the whole no restrictions slowly started to become some restrictions, then started to becoming very restricted. Fuck off. Can't have them. And it happened, like you said, it happened quickly. And like the good news for RevPro is RevPro had a much better roster than Defiant did. They also had the New Japan relationship, which was also part of the reason the WWE talent were pulled from them. This hurt Defiant more than anything, the former Whataculture stuff. And it's that was some of the first real big impact that I know people started noticing. And that's when you started getting into the NXT UK is going to kill the scene. And I think a lot of the reason this restrictions started happening is you heard Triple H, he would go on these little rants about, we can't have guys working shows with no medical at them and stuff like that. And I think the big red flag was when Travis Banks got hurt, I think just a couple days ahead of the NXT UK taping. And that led to a change in plans for NXT UK, and that pissed off Papa Paul, and then the hammer started going down quite literally from Paul.
Yeah, so from what I can recall, the Travis Banks injury was at a Fight Club Pro show literally days before those Cambridge tapings. And if you remember the early days of NXT UK, if you were watching the back-to-back episodes, they had to write Travis out with a shoulder injury. And if I'm being honest, that's really hurt his whole career in NXT UK, you'd have to say. Like, you've got to remember when that show was originally taped, he was just coming off of losing the Progress title, but still had a fair amount of buzz. And, he was a guy everyone expects to hit the ground running, and here we are now. All due respect to him, where's the focus on him? Barely on takeovers. Okay, he was on Worlds Collide, but in terms of actual spotlight, it's very much a case of what could have been for him.
I agree, and it's he's never really recovered, and he's a guy that's had good performances and everything, but it's just he's never had a chance to get momentum going, and I think that as you said, you go back to that point. I think that they had good plans for him, and then the injury happened, and they moved on to other people, and it's wild how that happens. You just one little thing can ruin a lot of stuff,
and especially like. We talk about New Japan, how meticulously they lay things out. This isn't something that's at least in terms of TV, isn't something that looks like it's been planned weeks in advance. So the fact that one injury means that he's gone from out of guest main event star to barely being on the show, to barely being focused on, it says a lot, but. Yeah, say NXT UK started, and then that's where the things started getting a bit shady. At this point, a lot of the indie promotions still keep going. Rev Pro, I think, we're starting to ramp up their show schedules, and like I say now, 2020, they run so many shows. I'm having a hard time keeping up, let alone people who actually work for them. You look at the taping schedules. I think one of the early NXT UK shows clashed with the Progress show to the point where I think actually the show that Travis Banks lost the belt on had to move to midweek just to accommodate it. When they announced takeovers, they would seem to come from out of nowhere. We had the takeover Cardiff that were announced for the same day as New Japan's show in London last year. We've literally just had a takeover announced for Dublin, Ireland, which was the same day as the Progress show, coming the day after OTT in Ireland, in the same freaking town, running a show now. Okay, two complete different audiences, but still,
total coincidence.
Yeah, well, there has been talk the arena they're running in Dublin, the Free Arena, that's apparently a notorious building to get dates from, or notoriously difficult building to get dates, and so that one, can kind of let slide. It's unfortunate, but the fact that they're supposedly friendly with Progress, with OTT, with WXW, the fact that Progress have had to move their own long scheduled dates because, hey guys, we're running a takeover now. WXW, before we started recording, we had a chat. 2 weeks time, I'm going to be over in Germany for their 16 Karat Gold tournament. That's slap bang in the middle of NXT UK tapings. The last weekend that WXW had, the World Tag Team Festival, that clashed with NXT UK tapings. And it's like, we've seen with Rev Pro how they've, I don't want to say they've signed away talent to frustrate them, but I mean, Christ, they've signed referees away from them. Like, Chris Roberts was signed. He's not exactly a feature referee for Rev Pro, for WWE UK. He was signed, not allowed to work for Rev Pro anymore, but he's able to do Progress. He's able to do pretty much everyone but Rev Pro. So to me, it's like, well, I don't want to say they're signing people just to piss off and frustrate and try and shut down Rev Pro. I know others certainly have made that accusation, but to me, when you look at the signings and the stuff they've done for supposedly, their partner or friendly promotions, is it any surprise they're, getting slightly dirty towards Rev Pro? But again, running, clashing with weekends, that's a one-off. If push came to shove, those other promotions could move dates. Progress certainly have. The big sticking point that fans have had has been the signing of talent. Now, if you go on the Performance Centre website, they've got a section for NXT UK. It's not fully in date. I mean, they've got 50 names there, but that includes Pete Dunnes and Rhea Ripley's, who are not part of NXT UK anymore. But it was a couple of weeks back they announced a new batch of signings. Daniel Luna, Levi Muir. They've barely had a year on the indie scene. Like Levi Muir, I think we were saying before, doesn't have a cage match page. His highest profile match, at least if you go by what people determine high profile indies, was a dark match for a Progress show. Yet he's been signed, he's under contract. And it's like, well, what is NXT UK? And that to me has been the big kind of identity crisis that they've had. Is NXT UK developmental? Because, same as the week where Zach Gibson and James Drake seem to have moved up to NXT proper, but there doesn't seem to be that much development from the bottom to the top to the next level. Zach Gibson, especially when he was signed, a lot of people attacking him for main NXT anyway. Pete Dunne, even if NXT UK hadn't existed, would have made it anyway. Rhea Ripley, she was a NXT, Largo Loop project who they used NXT UK to season with. So, in a sense, it's been used as developmental when they wanted to be. But how many names have you seen who signed from the European scene and it's actually come from the bottom and made anywhere up? Like, the big name everyone was pointing out, Killer Kelly. She was signed, debuted on the Royal Albert Hall shows, and when it comes to televised stuff, didn't win a single match.
She was lucky to get 3 minutes half the time, too, dude. That's the worst part. I mean, it wasn't even like they were booking her competitively to where later on you could maybe tell a rehab story with her. I mean, she was just straight up doing like sub 3 minute jobs most of the time, too. And that was extremely frustrating. So I think Kelly's rather talented, and you have somebody that seemed to have something there, and then it's just, like you say, you just job her the fuck out, and it's so weird, like you said, because it doesn't feel like they know exactly what they want this brand to be. They want it to be developmental. They want it to be their main UK brand. They also want to kind of, I guess the term you've used before is frustrate the scene. Obviously restricting the talents, taking other talents that are possibly getting some buzzing on the way up. And then you go back to what we were talking about how they're even almost playing dirty with their friendly friends, their promotional friends, and like scheduling stuff during the same time. And then, you pull talent, and, like Tyler Bate is allegedly injured and he's going to miss a show coming up here. And then you constantly hear about mysterious injuries or mysterious talent pullings constantly coming up on a lot of these European shows. And it's just like they come out of nowhere, and it's like, here's the thing. If you don't want NXT talent number 13 working a show, don't okay him to work the show and then pull him like a week ahead of time. Like,
yep.
I believe you said Pretty Deadly just got pulled from a show, correct?
So it was actually last weekend, so Pretty Deadly, they were meant to have worked OTT's show in near Dublin, Ireland. They were meant to have worked the final show for a company called Pro Wrestling Clash in Bournemouth, the show I was at. They were pulled fairly late on, but they were booked after they'd signed to NXT UK, from what I understand. So it wasn't a case of they signed, they had these pre-existing bookings, and they were told, no, cancel them. Now, normally when you see guys getting pulled, it's a case of, they've got an injury, we want to take precautions. Like Progress this Sunday, Travis Banks is pulled out with injury, and you now have a random 6-man tag with Walter and the Anti-Fun Police against Morven Hype from Ireland, which on paper shoots can be a great match, but on paper, when you scan that card, that kind of sticks out a bit. Going back to Tyler Bate, was announced tonight by OTT. He was booked for a show in Belfast, Northern Ireland this weekend. He's been pulled, and there's a lot of fans in Ireland up in arms about it, rightly so. Apparently this is like the 5th time he's been pulled off from an OTT show. Big issue here, he's won half of their tag team champions. They won those belts with him and Trent Seven won those belts last July, I believe. And those belts may as well not exist. And OTT did build to a match, I think it was back end of last year, where they were going to lose the belts when Tyler got injured, got pulled. And I'm not going to make any accusations, but there are some people I've noticed since they went, quote, full-time and were paid to work out at the Performance Centre, have wrestled a lot fewer matches than they used to and are getting hurt a lot more. I do seem to recall when the PC opened in Florida, you had this rush of guys who were getting hurt because of the Olympic lifting or something like that, which, I don't know if it's for training methods, I don't know what it is, but if you're taking this at face value, Tyler Bates sure is getting inched a lot around OTT Showtime.
It's, I don't know. It's like, you hate to go total conspiracy theorist on it, but, once is once, twice maybe a coincidence. Once you start getting past that, it really feels like, for lack of a better word, how can we frustrate these people and fuck them over at the same time?
And again, these are promotions they're friendly with. I mean...
Which is the scary part.
Yeah. I mean, Andy Quilden, Rev Pro Booker and owner, he has his own podcast, and NXT UK has come up a lot. And you were talking about one of the last shows Travis Banks was on. They had plans for him to... So this was one of their monthly cockpit shows they have. It's a theatre in London, holds 150, 200 people, depending on who's counting that day. And they were planning a storyline with Travis Banks against a guy called Rob Elias, who is one of Rev Pro's trainees who's graduated and is now working somewhat regularly. And the storyline they had was for Travis Banks to lose to him in very short order with an injury, and then build up to the obvious, I beat you in 3 minutes, and then when Travis is fully healed, he blitzes through him. Problem was, at the time, Travis Banks was Progress World Champion, losing to a Rev Pro trainee, not for all intents and purposes, in less than 3 minutes. That didn't go down well with the guys of Progress, at least in Andy Quilden's version of events. And to be fair, I know certain promoters in the UK have said that interpromotional politics doesn't tend to exist. Well, again, I'm not saying that's the thing that triggered the whole, Rev Pro, F these guys, but it's certainly very interesting that that call to pull them from Rev Pro was made around about the same time that happened. But actually, while we were talking before, just to go all the way back to 5 Star Wrestling, I've actually found something on Company's House, so it's like a statement of anything to do with the company. So they were wound up June 2018, and there's a list of people they owe money to. Total debt creditors got listed here, £176,000, which to translate into Yankee bucks, you're looking at, let me see, 176 pounds to US dollars. You're looking at around about $226,000 in people they owed money to, and these were things like apparently the promoter was owed £10,000, which, go figure. Newspapers rolled from hundreds to thousands of pounds. A few names would stick out here, though. The arena in Plymouth, they ran their penultimate show on, owed about £700. Valerie, SoCal Val, she's listed on here for about £650. Greg Lambert, who at least publicly was a commentator, owed just short of £1,000. There's one name here out of Chula Vista, California. Rey Mysterio owed over £56,000.
Jesus Christ!
And just from looking at, a cage match, he only worked 5, 6. He worked 9 of their 10 shows.
No wonder Ray re-signed with WWE, man. He needed to replenish the bank account, for fuck's sake.
Which begs the question: 9 shows, but was owed, say, £60,000 for rough figures. Did he ever get paid?
I mean, it doesn't sound like it.
Where was David Starr when he needed him then? But yeah, and going back to saying about NXT UK, I mean, when you get all these signings, if you boil it down to individuals, like, I don't know of any single person who begrudges, I don't know, when Walter got signed, yeah, it was a bit of a gut punch, but it's like nobody begrudged Walter for signing because he'd been around for a decade. He'd worked a lot in Europe. If you talk about what more could he have done, wasn't much more he could have done. He's Progress champion. He since lost the belt. But in terms of where else he could go, well, it wasn't like he was going to be able to go to, he'd already said he didn't want to go to America full time. Well, we'll see. He didn't, he wanted to go to Japan. Well, that didn't seem to be on the cards. I mean, I know he had a last run for F Pro. He had a few matches against Tomohiro Ishii. And I remember at one of the WWE press conferences that we covered, he was asked straight up, was there talks of you and New Japan? And it was a flat no. Now, whether that was work or not, because by that point he had been signed by WWE. But to me, it's like, well, one, someone's, if the New Japan thing's true, someone's sleeping there because, Christ, we saw the match today, Shingo and Big Tom. He'd been a perfect fit against either of those guys, but, as it is, didn't happen. So Walt got signed. Nobody complained as much about, Walt is sold out, blah, blah, blah. Nobody complained, when it was, say, Ligero, when he signed when the NXT started. The issue has not been the individuals, it's been the volume. It's like nobody's begrudging, people signing, getting guaranteed money and making a living. I mean, I know it's the meme of, taking food off their table. Well, that's never it. The issue is it's more almost a regret that, like, Chris Brooks, he's just left for UK. He's relocated to Japan working for DDT for the next 12 months. He's about the only guy who said no to those contracts.
Well, I mean, listen, man. I mean, you have the choice between fighting in a water slide park and facing Kona Reeves in like a 3-minute bullshit match. I'm going with DDT in the water park, brother.
Well, yeah, and the fact is, DDT, you get to see elephants.
Well, shit, there you go.
But again, it's the whole thing of, is it a business or is it art? And for some, and again, I'm not casting aspersions, I'm not saying that anyone did this just for money. I mean, hell, I probably would have done the same too. Especially like, we talk about Killer Kelly. You look at that women's division; they've got a lot of names about women's roster. And if you look at the taping histories, outside of your Kaylee Rays, your Tony Storms, your Piper Nivens after they signed, nobody's working regularly. You're still getting your paycheck. And to me, if you're guaranteed, I think, there's numbers I've heard, they range from maybe about 20, 25,000 a year. I don't know how true they are, but use that as a ballpark figure if you wish. If you're getting 25 grand a year just for going to the Performance Centre in Enfield, doing travelling to TV once a month, catering, hotels, maybe doing a match, and in a lot of these cases, like Nina Samuels still works fairly regularly for E, for instance, and Progress when they want to have more than one women's match. Same with, maybe not Kaylee and Piper Niven, but Killer Kelly before she left was doing WXW and other shows. At that kind of level, if you're able to get back guaranteed money and do stuff on the side, well, all of a sudden you can maybe be forgiven for picking and choosing your indie bookings. You all of a sudden, like Ligero was notorious for working upwards of 300 shows a year.
My man was working like a fucking Mexico schedule, dude. He was working an insane clip for a long time. So, and a
lot of those, were the holiday camp shows, but for plenty of weekends, you look in his cage match where he was double shotting, and I'm not talking about double shotting. I did Butlins on the morning and Butlins in the afternoon. No, he was doing, more than not, shows in Leeds on the Sunday afternoon, and then maybe Manchester in the evening. Ligero had put a lot of miles under him. So for someone like him, I have no issue with a guy who's been around, done the miles, done pretty much all he can on the indies, getting that kind of deal. The issue is the other end is those coming in, and again, I'm not going to name names, I'm not going to accuse or anything like that, but someone coming in straight out of training school, especially with NXT UK's record of not developing talent. Might happen to someone, but past performance is an indicator, maybe an indicator of future performance. And really, who's done anything from day one and moved up? We just saw the Hunt tonight. They debuted with a bit for buzz, but really they're two singles guys they couldn't figure out anything to do with. The fact that they're kind of being usurped by Pretty Deadly, and they've only been in probably once. This is their first set of tapings. And to me, there is a train of thought that the people who book NXT UK, or the public face of NXT UK, I should say, are the people behind Progress. So you're Jim Smallman, John Briley, Glenn Joseph. Now, in terms of, do I think that they are controlling everything, pulling all the strings? Of course not. Like everything else, there are people well above them who make calls, who they answer to. But I will say, if you look at who's been pushed in NXT UK versus who's been pushed when in promotion they've had the final say in, there's an awful lot of overlap there.
Yeah, and I know that's one thing that's frustrated a lot of people, and that goes kind of to NXT UK as a whole, and we've often talked about this. It's not so much that you're to get a lot of bad NXT UK shows, but the problem is it's still evolving as a product, but it feels stale a lot of the time because, like last year there was only the 2 takeovers. So you kind of have a lot of dead time. You're doing the old NXT format of taping 3 to 5 shows at one clip on a day. And then you're getting all these people on there, and I guess for lack of a better word, they're not evolving the talent. You're not seeing people grow. You're not seeing people really move up the card. I mean, Jordan Devlin was doing his best work of his career, signed to WWE, outside of WWE. I mean, the fact that he was fucking killing it in OTT and other places, and then barely being used on NXT UK TV, was fucking dumbfounding to me. But yet that's exactly what happened.
And again, I think the issue you've got is we were 81 episodes deep now. And the big issue for formatting that TV is it's the old way that NXT used to do television. You ship your whole roster in 1-2 nights a month. You tape, 6, 7, 8 weeks of TV across the 2 nights. The problem is, you look at the way NXT's being taped now. You're getting shows where pretty much all the key names are on every week. So, just have a takeover last week. Tommaso Ciampa and Adam Cole were on that show every week. If it was under the NXT UK format, you'd have maybe an Adam Cole match week 1, nothing week 2, a vignette in week 3 or a promo. Week 4, he'd maybe have a video package. Then week 6, he'd have another match. Then week 8, we'd have a contract signing, something like that. Okay, I get NXT UK doesn't have regular takeovers, but the fact that if you're a fan of pretty much anyone on this roster apart from Gallus, they're not on TV every week. I'll pull up our friends again, the cage match. If you look at the NXT UK, week to weeks. So I'm just going back a few months, so last June, say. So TV show 50 through 56. So you're looking at Ilya Dragunov's on TV show 50, and then didn't appear again until 57. So you're going 2 months between one of your favourites having a match, and you're surprised people aren't interested. I mean, this year, started a month ago when WWE moved to BT Sport in this country. NXT UK actually is on proper broadcast television. It's on BT Sport 2 on Friday nights. If you want to stay up late, it's on Paramount Network, the old Spike TV over here, on Wednesday nights at midnight. It's not being watched by anyone. The TV ratings for Paramount Network are available publicly. The top 15 that BARB, British equivalent of Nielsen, list, it's 12,000-15,000 people, of 12,000-15,000 viewers. And if NXT UK is not breaking that, granted on a crap time slot a week after the show's first aired, where's the interest?
And that's kind of alarming considering, for lack of a better term, it's a UK product in the UK and you're not breaking 20,000 people.
So let me clarify that. It was BT Sport 2, if the bottom shows about 15,000 people, and it's still not breaking that. But that's even worse because that's airing the day after it's aired on the network. And if you go by, okay, Twitter's never the best metric, just ask people who follow WWE financials. But you look at people on Twitter, at least, the people you think NXT UK is trying to appeal to, there is no buzz for that most weeks. People maybe bring themselves to watch takeovers, but the actual NXTs, the actual NXT UK shows, they get no traction at all.
They really don't. And I mean, I can tell you just from like my personal experience judging the metrics on the site and everything, it's like NXT UK takeovers will do, like when I do live coverage, they'll kind of roughly do maybe an Impact pay-per-view number of comments, which is like a third of what a WWE pay-per-view would do, if that. It does a little better than ROH will do live coverage-wise, but like, we're recording now, and we've already watched NXT UK because we're recording on a Thursday. This is going to go up over the weekend. My NXT UK review, and I can't check the hit numbers right now, but just looking at it, nobody's commented on this show yet. And my review's been up for an hour and a half, and normally I put a review up, and people are commenting right away. And it's just, but it's like that every week with NXT UK. Like, I'll go in there tomorrow, and there's going to be 2 or 3 guys that are like, fuck, I love Ilya Dragunov. That was a great match. I'm so happy. And it'll be like 2 or 3 guys, and that's probably it.
Yeah, if you want to look, Fig 4 Weekly, Observer website, I'm looking at the website now. This is 90 minutes after the show finished. Not a mention of it. In terms of like numbers, I'm just putting on my own site. So NXT UK, okay, bear in mind it's only been up for an hour, but a preview of a show that I posted 24 hours ago has had more views than that show. Hell, I'm just having to double take with this. A random match review I wrote with some Women of Honor matches that I wrote in October 2016 has had more views from that NXT UK report. So, like, I would consider my site, okay, I cover a lot of New Japan, but the bulk of the promotions I write about are based in Europe, Progress, RevPro, OTT, WXW. So, I'm not saying I'm a top guy with source, far from it, but in terms of coverage, the bulk of my site is British and European, and most weeks the NXT UK shows don't break into even the pretty much always the bottom of the weekly reviews I do. It's like going by what's been posted in the last 7 days, going by stuff like Rev Pro show, but from last week. That's by far and away the most read because, surprised, it has buzz. But things like NXT UK, it's lucky if it gets out of bottom 2 or 3 in terms of articles read every week.
And unfortunately, that kind of goes back to the joke of NXT UK is a brand that allegedly exists and nothing happens.
Well, we were talking about earlier. Who isn't spinning their wheels? Like Jordan Devlin, if he hadn't gone to NXT, with the Cruiserweight belt, where would he have been on these shows? Mid-card. Again, going through those, the usual results. You've got, let's see, Ashton Smith, he's been on there since day one. And his progression's been from, glorified enhancement talent to glorified enhancement tag team.
Fair.
Trent's, I would even say it's not even a case of people not rising. I would argue some's fallen. Trent Seven has pretty much gone 50-50 with Eddie Dennis. And some people say without Tyler Bate, Trent Seven is a solid hand. He's a star. I comment all the time, Tyler Bate and Trent Seven are pretty much the only guys who get the massive pops. They're the only goddamn stars on this brand. And when you've had 80 weeks of TV and you've not created anybody to, come close to that level, then how can you call that a success? Like, okay, the takeover sellout, well, yeah, Big Show's do tend to sell out over here. The week TV tapings, they ran in York a month ago. Neither of those shows sold out. They're running in Coventry in about 2 weeks' time. And from what I hear, those have half of them sold out. It's like, the whole format, it's working in terms of it's creating content, it's creating a TV show, it's creating talking points, I guess, for folks like us. But, we saw it Worlds Collide. That first match when Ilya Dragunov came out. Absolute silence. So that tells you, outside of the UK, it's probably just yourself and Joe Lanza who watches this every week.
I don't even think Joe watches it anymore.
Maybe catch-ups, and even many cherry picks. So yeah, it's probably just yourself and whoever covers it for PW Insider, I believe. So, but then again, when you branded NXT UK, can you blame people in America not watching it?
Yeah, and the other thing too is like we talk about how the show it kind of feels stale, and you get into these long runs to where it feels like absolutely nothing is happening. And like, today's show was a rare good show. It felt like, because we actually had some good wrestling and they announced some good stuff for next week and everything. And it's like, hey, this actually felt like a TV show with a purpose behind it. And we'll see where we are in 3 weeks, though, because these pop up every once in a while, and you kind of get some hope, and then it's back into the same old.
I think, obviously, next week, it going on to an early time slot because of Saudi Mania. Yeah, that's going to derail it a little bit, like anyone watches it live anyway. But I think the next 2 weeks, we've announced Kelly Ray, Tony Storm, then the week after, Walter and Dave Mastiff. And you look at the way the tapings work. At first, they had a storyline arc from taping 1 to taping 2. They still do that. But they tend to save the big matches for the main events of the second block of tapings. It's like, well, no wonder the first, out for 8 weeks of shows 1 to 4 were usually flatter than 5 to 8, because they put all the good stuff in the second night to sell tickets. And again, I don't know what you do. I don't know if you can move to proper monthly tapings where you have, I don't want to say you shut down Progress and take the ballroom dates they have now, but I do wonder I don't think running weekly is going to ever be a thing.
No, because, I don't think so. But I do think at the very least they need to do something to transition to monthly. At the very least. I agree. Weekly just doesn't seem viable at all. It's too much cost for not enough gain.
Well, the fact as well is there's been absolutely zero talk of them doing house shows. It's like, it's not even a case that there's buzz of them saying, well, we're going to do, we'll tape in Coventry on Saturday and Sunday, and then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday we'll go in Wolverhampton, Liverpool, somewhere like that. So, for me, going weekly, that's off the table. But I think if you can do monthly so that every show you have a main event, you have a reason to draw fans. Because right now, like I just said, the 2-night tapings, night 1's usually the weakest of the 2. And unfortunately, that comes across on TV. And, short of rewriting stuff so that you have big main events. The problem is they tend not to announce matches for TV anymore because it tips off the booking. So if you if you look now for I think it's Coventry Skydome, it's where the next NXT UK tapings are. So I've just pulled up their website now, and what's here? It's the Planet Ice Arena. Events. Next events, NXT UK Live Coventry, and literally all it's showing is fans attending will see their favourite stars, including Walter, Kaylee Ray, Mark Coffey and Wolfgang, Tyler Bate, Trent Seven Ginny, Ilya Dragunov, Tony Storm, Zaya Brookside, Grizzled Young Veterans, and all your favourite trademarks and all rights reserved symbols. Like, there's no matches there. Literally all that's attracting you to that show is the NXT UK logo and the generic poster of every face of a company. Like, as a fan, if I wanted to go, not knowing this is a TV taping, like, and even then the poster of this is saying live tour, not indicating it's a TV taping. So if it's a live tour, like when they run house shows, they at least give you the the softball matches. Okay, you're not going to see a title change, but you at least have some idea of what matches you're going to see.
Okay, hang on. This is for the Coventry show. The website it's not advertising Balor?
So at the moment right now, I'm looking at CoventrySkydome.com, and there's zero mention of Finn Balor.
Because, I mean, I know that they've announced him for it, because I'm looking at the tweet in our post on the site, and clicking the link in the post. Yeah, I'm probably on the same place you are. Yeah, no fucking... How are you not mentioning Finn Balor on this fucking site?
And again, you could argue it's the arena that does or doesn't advertise, but at the same time, I'm looking now at the ticketing for this. So you are looking now, ticketing for these shows, you're looking at £50 down to £15. And I'm actually on the ticket page, still no mention of Finn Balor. And yeah, 50. So across the 2 nights, £100 if you want to see the 2 TV tapings, no ringside, with no matches known. And this, so for all you know, it could be Finn Balor against Walter, or it could be Finn Balor against Jack Stars for your £50.
Although I will say Finn Balor, John Woo, and Jack Stars across the fucking ring would be spectacular, but because he's been killing people with that lately, I would love to see that actually. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't understand. I don't get it. I don't get how they're not advertising better. They just they need to do something, man, because inherently it's like it is not a bad brand. It is not a bad roster. There is a lot of talent there, but as we've talked about, the biggest problem is you gave birth to this promotion. You took all the talent you wanted. You crippled other promotions, and then you're just it's your UK warehouse to where you can hide a bunch of other talent that people aren't allowed to have.
I mean, this is one takeaway I want to make sure people have from this. As someone who went to Progress shows monthly, who still goes to Rev Pro monthly and a lot of other indies, yeah, of course I'm disappointed, but a lot of my favourites aren't around anymore. But at the same point, I really want NXT UK to be better. If I'm losing my Travis Banks, if I'm losing my Walters, if I'm losing my Tyler Bates, my Ilya Dragunovs, etc., I want to be able to see them doing something that actually matters, rather than watching them on the UK version of WWE Superstars. I mean, you review Main Event every week. This has got slightly more variety than that, but in terms of crowd interest, this may be bad miking, it's pretty much the same goddamn level.
Some weeks, yeah, it definitely feels like that. And that's a shame because it really shouldn't be. There's too much damn talent on the roster. But again, I think a lot of that comes with the way you're taping TV, which we already talked about. And it's just, it needs to be addressed and fixed, honestly. It really does, because otherwise it's just, for lack of a better word, it's just content that means nothing. And
I know the meme has been with all Brit Wrestlers dead, and to a point, yeah, you lose all the top stars, you have to go through a spell where you replace them. And like we said, some companies have been better positioned than others. WXW, okay, they only lost Walter and Ilya Dragunov. Okay, Tim Thatcher, wherever he lands up. But they lost 2 of the big names, and they're having to replace because who knows who else they're going to lose. Defiant, they lost 3 WWE guys, and unfortunately for them, their other alternative was indie guys who have to travel a long distance. Maybe not going to get the money back in terms of transport versus the fans they get in, and to an extent that's kind of what killed them. And Rev Pro, where their 2019, I called this in one of my reviews, 2019 was their Annus Horribilis. In terms of they had a lot of shows. I think some of the early travelling shows they had were in front of very small crowds. But the show they had last Friday in York Hall, I I called my own podcast, it was like a shot in the arm, but the scene needed. The thing is, one good show isn't going to undo 18 months of people being signed away, of ill feeling, of what we're going through now. And I think if NXT UK was more than throwaway TV 90% of the time, I think people would be a bit more lenient towards it. But the fact that, like say, you watch the show, most of the time it's in soulless arenas where, if chants come through, it's because the Ogden brothers are there. And genuinely, if you watched the York and the Hull tapings for the last few months, most of the chants have come from those two guys, and they go through things over 100 shows a year. So there are seasoned fans, but NXT UK to me feels like it's taking indie talent and aiming it at casual fans who'll go because it's got WWE on. And as you and I know, Larry, indie wrestling and WWE wrestling, two completely different styles and two completely different fan groups. And it's trying to circle a square that maybe wasn't meant to be circled.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because it's frustrating because, like I said, there someone got insulted the other week when I wrote something about NXT UK in my review. It was like something along the lines of, it was a perfectly solid show that felt like nothing happened. And someone got all upset about it. And I'm like, listen, the show is what it is sometimes, I'm like, you just put on some matches and you really don't announce anything for next week and you're not really telling stories some weeks. It's just content.
Yeah.
It's nothing happening. And I think that the show definitely should be more than that. Because, as we see, every once in a while we get really good shows. Like, I enjoyed today's show a lot. I thought Jez Connors and Tyler Bate was really good. Ilya Dragunov and Joe Coffey was really good. Jenny explained why Jazzy Gabber's gone. Noam Dar had a solid little squash. It was a good little TV show this week. Plus, they actually announced our stuff for next week. And it's like, okay, you were a TV show this week. This is what you need to do more often. The crowd was into it a little more than it usually is this week. Yep. Just, give me a little more of that. I'm not expecting, I always talk about it. People get upset when, why do you say that you feel most weekly TV is average? I'm like, well, because sometimes you have really good stuff, sometimes you have really bad stuff, and then a lot of the time it's just there. It's just the unfortunate nature of weekly wrestling TV in 2019-2020. It's what it's become because the lack of storytelling and properly building episodic TV has largely been lost on a lot of companies. And I say largely because it hasn't been completely, because as I've talked about the past couple weeks, AEW feels like it's really locked into a groove right now. And I'm invested in a ton of stuff. To whereas last night's NXT was a low-level good show, but there was nothing that made me care or got me invested in it. Wasn't a bad show. There wasn't a lot to complain about. There was good wrestling, but it was just kind of there. Plus, you had Velveteen Dream in a fucking onesie. So,
Again, I'm not saying a rival promotion going head-to-head with NXT UK would work. I know there's a few people calling for Rev Pro last week to be on broadcast TV. That's never going to happen. We've had too many cases now where, whether it's your 5 stars, your World of Sports, or even Rev Pro, have burned TV covers because if the height of the buzz the Britras had, it did not translate to TV numbers. But, like saying, the one thing I will say is in terms of all the talent that NXT UK has, they should be getting a much better, critically, a much better product out than they are. And one last thing in closing, why so much Gallus? Who's asking for this?
Gallus boys on top, unfortunately, man. And I get you. I hear you. The best thing about Gallus is the little theme song. At least I can enjoy that. But then I realize it means they're coming out. So, and for me to close out, I just want to say, and for people there to say we sound a little harsh and negative here at times, what you have to understand is this. Positivity for the sake of positivity does nobody any good, number one.
No.
Number two, Ian is on this show because he is kind of like my conduit to the inside of, obviously, Brit Wrestling, okay? Because I don't live over there. And he loves it. He's been to these shows, and he has way more background on a lot of this stuff. Number three, the other thing is, it's coming from a place of love from both of us, because as I have explained over the years, I have constantly tried to evolve my fandom. When ECW and WCW closed, I got into TNA, which meant I found AJ Styles, Christopher Daniels, and a bunch of guys I loved, which got me into ROH and PWG. I started getting into Lucha. I'd later get into Evolve and all these things. And another thing I did over the years is I started getting into the British wrestling scene because I found like Will Ospreay, Marty Scurll, British Strong Style, and people like this. And it's another thing that just makes me love wrestling. And the bottom line is, I think we both know and think it could be a lot better. Because there's too much talent and there are smart people behind it. But for whatever reason, it feels largely stagnant a lot of the time. And maybe 2020 things will change. I mean, we already had a takeover in January. We have another one coming up in April. So, maybe they're going to start advancing this brand a little more and changing things up and moving people around, and we're going to see what happens. I'm optimistic, but I think it's important to call out the shortcomings of it and the effects it's had on the overall Brit wrestling scene.
And again, Rev Pro has been the company everyone's looked at to see the state of the wider British wrestling scene, rightly or wrongly. But I think it's also very telling that Progress, they were the people who run NXT UK and obviously Progress themselves. For years, their shows were hot tickets. Like, you were going... I remember for years when I didn't have a Progress season ticket, I was buying my tickets when they went on general sale, and every Monday, one Monday a month at lunchtime, they would drop at 12 noon. I was sitting F5 like a goddamn trooper trying to get tickets, and most of the time I got them. But ever since their show at Wembley Arena, September 2018, coincidentally around the same time NXT UK was starting, those shows stopped being instant sellouts. I mean, now they've got a show this coming Sunday, say we're recording this on a Thursday evening, and Progress have got the full card out, and as I look now, a promotion which used to sell out the Electric Ballroom in a matter of minutes, I can still get tickets for the seating and standing. And the whole time they've been at the Electric Ballroom, you've maybe had a few shows where standing tickets have been available on the day of, but to still have seats available, 72 so hours before showtime, that in itself is a lot more of an indicator of how the indie fans feel, I would say, than whether Rev Pro's having a good show or whether a promotion with all due respect to Pro Wrestling Clash, as much as I like them, they were only open for a year or two. A promotion that's been on a long while, suddenly having issues selling out, even seats, is a bigger indicator than a promotion that's been around a couple of years, closing the doors. But yeah, we're on this on a happy note. It is getting eyeballs from the British wrestling scene, but the product that's out there, could be a lot more consistent. And it's not a hard fix. Moving to monthly taping, could well fix it. It's just, is the appetite there within WWE to do it, or do we need a World of Sport to threaten another series, or New Japan to threaten a UK dojo or something like that? But yeah, it's not a dead brand. It just feels like it half the time.
Yeah, and that's the unfortunate thing, because it really shouldn't. So that'll wrap up our portion of the show. Ian, I want to thank you again for coming on, buddy. And everybody go check out backbodydrop.com. As Ian said, he catches and reviews a ton of the UK and European stuff. He also does New Japan Pro Wrestling. And you're going to be going to the WXW 16 Carat stuff, and you're probably going to have a ton of photos and coverage of that, I imagine.
Yes, so this time, actually 2 weeks' time, be the first show they run. We won't be covering the Inner Circle. It's a mystery show at their academy in Essen. That one we don't cover because, one, there's barely any phone signal in the building. But the main 16 Carat Gold shows, none of these are being live streamed, by the way, guys. So if you want to watch them, wxwnow.com, they drop in March. But we've had a pretty good run of having the live show reviews up pretty much by the end of the final bell. So got 16 Carat Gold starting on Friday. So let's get the date. Friday, March 6th. That'll be finishing around about 11 p.m. or 11 p.m. on midnight Friday night UK time. Then there's 3 shows we'll be doing on the Saturday, 2 on the Sunday, and then whatever wrap-ups and audio bits we can get around. And of course, we'll have photos from all of the shows for Turbine Hall. All that will be linked to on backbodydrop.com, the Instagram at backbodydrop, and the Twitter at bigbackbodydrop. Give us a follow. Any shows we go to live, we tend to have Instagram stories as well. And yeah, if you just want to see what does British and European indie wrestling look like, but you don't want to watch a VOD, well, it shows who have looked at our Instagram stories, and we'll give you a good insight.
All right, so thank you again, Ian, and I'm going to carry on with our next segment of the show. All right, welcome back to segment 2 of the show, and we're going to preview WWE Super Showdown, which takes place later this week. Joining me, you may remember him. He popped in on the old Blog Talk shows. He used to run the MMA Ground and Pound Radio on 411. A good friend, Mark Radulich. Mark, how are you today?
I'm doing very well, Larry. Thank you for having me on.
No problem. I was glad when you reached out and wanted to do some audio. It's been a long time since we talked, and yeah, we got the Saudi show coming up this week, and then you're going to be back on next weekend, and we're going to talk about this show in review form, and then we will also talk about the AEW Revolution pay-per-view. So you'll be pulling double duty in the week.
I'm very excited. I generally review shows a few days later, but I'm going to stay up late with you into the midnight hour reviewing that Revolution show, which I'm really looking forward to because I do love me some Jon Moxley, and I will go wherever he goes.
There you go. So yeah, a lot of good stuff to talk about. And again, this is the WWE, for lack of a better term, the Saudi Mania show, Super Showdown 2020, part of the 10-year agreement with the Saudi Sports Authority, which is making WWE a shit ton of money when the KSA wants to pay them, which they are delinquent on, judging by the latest financials again. So, it's a deal that's polarizing. A lot of people don't like it. People get upset when I mockingly call it Saudi Mania, but it is what it is because it is Saudi Mania. It's making more money than WrestleMania per show, and I mean, what the hell are you gonna do? But yeah,
I listened to your last show, and you talked about Tito Ortiz at the Performance Center, and I got very excited about the last Saudi show because they said, yes, we know we're paying the World Wrestling Entertainment Company to put on a wrestling show, but if you could just leave your roster at home and only bring over MMA and boxing guys, that would be great. Here's $1 zillion. And I laughed and I trolled and I thoroughly enjoyed all of that. I even might have liked the matches. I'm hoping the next Saudi show is Tito Ortiz versus Brock Lesnar. Just give me more of that, because if nothing else, I enjoy when the internet wrestling community sets itself on fire.
Yeah, and that will definitely happen if that match takes place. So, who the hell knows what's going to go on with Tito? It's like we talked about Wednesday. I mean, with all due respect to Tito and his MMA career, I mean, my man's 45. He has a bad back and neck. Allegedly suffered a skull fracture at one point. It's just like, I mean, I don't know how much Tito would have to give, but I mean, hey, if he scores a big Saudi payday, good for him.
I mean, it took nothing to get him signed up with Alberto Do, whatever he's calling himself these days, on Combate. So, I don't think what you have to offer physically is even a factor anymore. It's how valuable is your name, and can we fool enough people into thinking this is going to be entertaining?
I guess that's the gist of it. So we start off the show. This is the card as we have it. Allegedly, there will be a Mansoor match added from rumors, which would obviously make sense because he's kind of like their hero over there, and they try to build him up as a star, and there's nothing wrong with that. He's actually quite good. It's just they don't fucking ever use him. Like, they use him on these Saudi shows. He made a couple appearances in NXT and NXT UK, and then like, oh, hey, here's Mansoor at NXT Portland to babyface it up because Sam Roberts is a douchebag.
Yeah, I don't understand why they don't have Mansoor as a regular on the NXT UK shows. You would think with the audience over there, such as it is, he would be pretty valuable. And, Walter needs some fresh baby faces that aren't big, fat, hairy guys.
Exactly. It's just, Yeah, it's kind of puzzling they don't have a match for him already, but we start off with the Tuake Mountain Trophy Gauntlet match. So we have Rusev, R-Truth, AJ Styles, Andrade coming off his suspension, Eric Rowan, and Lashley, and this is the latest of the Saudi Mania specific matches, and a line of them that really haven't meant a lot or done anything. I mean, the greatest Royal Rumble gave Braun a big accomplishment and a big green belt that we've never seen again. They did that giant tag team gauntlet to crown the best tag team in the world that the Good Brothers won, and then it didn't do anything for them. They did the Best in the World tournament, which ended up being a giant waste and set up the Shane heel turn, which I'd rather forget. And then, we got that ridiculous 50-man Battle Royal, which was absolutely no good, but Mansoor got the big win there. And the good thing out of that was at least Mansoor got to have a really good match with Cesaro on the next show. And like I have in my preview, it's like, speaking of which, where the fuck is Mansoor? It's like, come on, man, give me the Mansoor match. He was like probably the best thing on that last show. And again, obviously he's working with Cesaro, but Mansoor is actually like good. So it's like, where's he? It's like, I think before the suspension, Andrade would have had a really good chance at winning. And then I looked at the lineup, and I was going to go with Rusev, and the Rusev resigned. Here's a cookie as a reward match. But all I can think of now is Styles is rumored to face Undertaker at Mania, and he should probably win this. Gauntlet matches, in my opinion, very hit and miss. Have to be laid out well. You have to have strong workers. Like, Rusev is good. Truth is a ton of fun. AJ can be good. Andrade is really good. Eric Rowan's a big brute, and Bobby Lashley is Bobby Lashley. So I'm going to go with AJ on this one, Mark.
You figure Eric Rowan and R-Truth are there to provide some entertainment and pinfalls. So then really all you've got left is Styles, Andrade, Lashley, and Rusev. Rusev just signed. He showed his commitment to the company. He's been a good company guy. He's done whatever they've asked of him. So he'll get pinned, I'm sure, right away. And that leaves ye old Bobby Lashley, Andrade, and AJ Styles. I like your pick for AJ Styles. I think it makes sense going into Mania that they would give him a high-profile win. So I'm going to pick Andrade because he's just coming off a suspension.
And WWE does have a history of rewarding people coming off suspension, so...
Yes, absolutely.
And the Rusev thing did make me laugh because that is a very WWE thing to do. Thank you for re-signing and showing us your loyalty. By the way, Truth is pinning you in the first 30 seconds.
Yep. We appreciate your commitment to this company, and we show you how committed we are to you by burying you under 50 other guys. See you in 5 years.
So next up, we have the SmackDown Women's Champion Bayley facing off with Naomi. Mark, what are you thinking on this one?
I was talking the other day, Naomi, when she first won the title back at WrestleMania in Orlando a few years ago, the crowd was really hot for her. She can be a super over babyface. I think a lot of the kids who come to see wrestling really enjoy her. She has this very colorful gimmick with the neon and everything. I think she's great. She's super athletic. Bayley, there was so much potential for her when she did her heel turn because she was angry about, always being dismissed and all of this other stuff. There was so much potential there, but they went another way with it, which I thought was really odd. They made her more low-key, almost like depressed instead of angry and fiery, given her circumstances. But what about the wrestling? Bayley is sort of defined by whoever she's working with. If she's working with somebody who can step up and really wrestle a high intensity match, she'll meet them there, and I think she can pull off something good. If she's working with somebody who's kind of struggling in the ring and has the basics but isn't quite as crisp as they need to be, her matches fall apart pretty quickly from what I've seen. So Naomi's not new. She's been there for a while. She's been on the main roster for a really long time. I have high hopes for this. I hope Naomi is able to pull the kind of match that, we're all hungering for that Bayley Sasha Banks NXT takeover match that they had where Bayley came out in the dusty gear and won the title. Because she hasn't had a match that good since. And for us Bayley fans, whether she's heel or face, that's what we're waiting for. We're waiting for the Bayley we know is there. So we're hoping Naomi takes her there. Either way, I would say going into WrestleMania, Bayley hangs on to the title. I'm not sure what they're going to do with her, given they've got the NXT title on the main WrestleMania card. But I would say Bayley maintains the title here.
Yeah, and this is our first ever women's title match taking place in Saudi Arabia, which I think is kind of unfortunate, if only for the reason that instead of maybe trying to let them go out there and just have a good match and tell a good story and get praised for it, they're going to do nothing but bash us over the fucking head with the we're making changes in history bullshit. And I that annoys me because that's all it becomes about. They don't even talk about the damn match during the match. That's all they're going to talk about. And I find it greatly annoying because you're not telling the story. You're not doing your job as an announcer then, because whoever's in the headset, Vince or whoever, is just bitching about history, goddammit. You know, and it's like, fucking tell the story. Maybe let them go out and have a good match. And then after they have a really good match, maybe you can sit there and sell them as these athletes that they made a change by going in as athletes and having a really quality contest instead of just telling us they're making history. That shit always annoys me.
I'm settling and being happy for the fact that it isn't two identical looking blonde white women.
This is true.
At least I can tell who's who.
So, I mean, I agree with you. I think the match definitely has potential. It'll be interesting to see how good a match they can wrestle working in, like, sleeping bags or a snowsuit. Because, I mean, God knows they're going to be totally covered up again. And I wouldn't rule out the title change, but I do agree with you. I think Bayley is winning here. I look at this match and all I can think of is, like, just please let them go and have a really good match. And let commentary tell the story. And then if it's good, then you can play the history card and making changes all you want. I just think it kind of discredits the match when all you do is harp on it during the whole time, you know? It's just, I want to appreciate the good match, you know?
I don't disagree with you. I think I think, and this is classic WWE for decades now, they don't know when to stop. You know, subtlety is not Vince McMahon's lifeblood. He is as over the top as they come. And so his whole perspective on things is, never, always go over the top, always push it well past its sell-by date. And I think as a fan, I've just gotten used to that. I don't disagree that they should just, let them have a wrestling match first and, then recognize it as an event after. On the other hand, for all the... And it's funny because you called it Saudi Mania, and I was like, did we retire the Blood Money name? We're not doing that anymore.
I'm trying not to anger people, Mark. I'm trying to be a good boy.
Fair enough. I got that lecture from my wife to say, hey, I'm recording with Larry. She said, great, don't be a douchebag. I'm like, oh, I'll try. So I get it. We have to behave ourselves. And here's the thing, and this is something I've talked about when Anthony Joshua fought Andy Ruiz. I talked about it with all of these WWE Saudi shows. The country's not perfect. No country is. They're trying. Modernization does not come easy. It comes slowly and painfully. So I think I kind of reframe it that way and be like, yeah, as a fan, it gets annoying. But taking the long view, if Saudi Arabia modernizes more and comes more in line with with modern culture in terms of the way they treat women and the rest of their citizens, I'll take it. It's fine. We'll get there eventually. So you have to just kind of take some annoying bumps along the way. Does that make sense to you?
No, it makes perfect sense, and I don't necessarily disagree. It's just like the whole women's revolution thing. That the whole time, everything has bothered me is every time something happens, it's history. And it's like, don't beat me over the head with it. Can't you just let it organically happen? We weren't sitting there when Bayley and Sasha had a fucking awesome match at TakeOver talking about it being history all the goddamn time. They just went out there and had an absolute fucking banger and stole the show.
Years ago, there was a Comic Relief show. I don't know if you remember Comic Relief, but it was... Okay, you do. For the kids out there, it was a big comic event, a stand-up comic event show. that they would, I think, raise money for like homelessness. And Paula Poundstone made a joke on that show. She was like, "Hey, did you know it was Year of the Woman? It's the Year of the Woman. We only get one." And I died laughing, even as a kid back then, because isn't that how it is, right? You know, you talk about like the women's revolution. It's like, look, we've never had a revolution before. Like Paula Poundstone was doing this shtick a decade before, or two before that. Where we like our marketing here in this country, that's for certain.
No doubt. So we're gonna move on, Mark. We have a cage match coming up here. The big dog Roman Reigns versus King Corbin. And I have some points, first of all. Number 1, why? Number 2, who the fuck could possibly care? Next up, WWE cage matches traditionally are not good. And then finally, can these guys actually have a good match here? That's a trick question, Mark, because the answer is no. They've had 2 pay-per-view matches, and I think I've given them a combined 3.5 stars. Okay? Just, it's not good. It's like the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. This feud has been bad. Their TV interactions have been bad. We've got dog food. It feels like Reigns feels more downgraded than ever, and the longer he feuds with Corbin, the more I feel that. And like I've said it before, like the only reason he's constantly feuding with Corbin is because they know the crowd is going to cheer Reigns. They know that for sure. And like, I keep hearing about how Corbin is this great heel, and for me, he's so cliche. He's overpushed. He's boring. They had a bad TLC match. Like, they had all the bells and whistles and still had a really bad match. They had an okay match at the Rumble, but they had all the bells and whistles. They brawled around the stadium, and they had 4 other guys to help them. And they still couldn't have a good match. And then we get a cage match now, which for me is just the most bastardized stipulation in all of WWE. One they continue to trot out, despite the fact that they've just repeatedly ruined it over and over again throughout the years. They've killed this stipulation. It means absolutely nothing. They've devalued it so much, and I don't know. It feels like they just like they looked at the cage match and they said, you know what? We don't like the cage match anymore. We're going to take it out in front of a crowd and just fuck it in the ass in front of everybody and humble it the old country way. Because it means that much these days. They're just not any good because the stipulation means no much. They have nobody under contract that can work a compelling cage match. Maybe sans Daniel Bryan without blood these days. And you're not going to get blood in a cage match unless it's an accident. So, and then of course we're going to have to take a 10-minute timeout so the ref can put gloves on and wipe them off. And all I can think of is like, who on earth thinks this is a good idea? And then I remember Vince McMahon is sitting there counting his money. It's good shit, pal.
I miss your old television coverages during the Reign of Terror, where at the end, when Triple H would inevitably win, you'd put up a picture of berries. Your other one that I enjoyed, of course, was the meme of Vince McMahon going, "Because fuck you, that's why."
That's a classic.
Yes, I remember all the Larry Csonka greatest hits.
One of my favorite ones is the dude from Planet Terror holding the big knife as he has the jar of testicles. I always use that to refer to Stephanie McMahon. That's a good one.
Yes, that is perfect. And I bring that up only to say that you have the face that nobody wants versus the heel that nobody wants in a match that nobody wanted on a card that nobody wanted. For Schadenfreude purposes, this is spectacular. For wrestling fan purposes, this is an unfortunate match. But who's going to win? Obviously Roman Reigns. But can they have a decent match? I don't know. I feel like both of them, both Corbin and Reigns, are the best company men they've got. They're willing to do whatever they're told, and they're doing it to their level best ability. I wonder, if when they're not under contract, when they're on someone's podcast years from now, if they're going to go back to this going, we were just doing what we were told. We were doing what we were told, and we knew it was trash when we were doing it. But hey, what else were we going to do? Leave and go somewhere else? Not on your life. So it's like having a tooth pulled. It's just it's just something you got to get through. It'll be painful when it's happening, but then it'll be over and we can move on to something else. We'll move on to Roman Reigns versus The Fiend. Yay! And King Corbin versus, I don't know, who knows. But yeah, it's, I like cage matches. We were talking about that before we started recording. And I got to be positive here. I got to have high hopes, Larry. I hope they can pull out something that's passively entertaining. That's all I ask for. I don't care. I'm not a work rate guy. I just want to be entertained. And hopefully the two of them can bumblefuck around that cage enough that I can at least laugh at what I'm watching. And, and a laugh is as good as anything else, right? That's still enjoying things, right?
Yeah, I mean, dude, I want it to be good. Don't get me wrong. It's just like, I've seen them. It feels like they've been feuding for a fucking decade.
Oh, yeah.
Because they were fighting on Raw, and now we're on SmackDown doing it, and it's never really been good, and it's just there. Why?
I think there's the occasional really fun, really special kind of out-of-the-box thing that happens in the WWE, but this is kind of my biggest problem with their main roster stuff on both Raw and SmackDown is that it's so sanitized. It's so meant for the broadest audience possible. It's an Adam Sandler or a 90s Jim Carrey film. This is meant for as many people as possible, and it's too broad to the point where it isn't enjoyable for someone like myself. I don't want to speak for you, but if you like a certain kind of wrestling, if you're looking for something that seems authentic to you, it seems like they can make you believe that that this is a real fight, even though we know it isn't. You're not going to find that in the WWE most times. It's a rare jewel when it happens. So I kind of look at this and I'm like, this is one of those, like, I've just been beaten down as a WWE fan. It's like, fine, Roman Reigns, King Corbin, I get it. Let's get this. Let's go. Let's do it. And if I actually am entertained by it, I will be pleasantly surprised.
I'm just hoping it doesn't suck. That's all I can ask at this point. Because, like, as much as I dog on Corbin, he isn't horrible. He has shown potential. Like, and granted, it was Chad Gable, but he had good matches with Chad Gable. It's like there is a little something there with the dude. He is not completely horrible, but it's just him and Reigns, I don't think click at all. I've never been into it, and I don't want to see another match, but here we are. Merry Christmas, Saudi Arabia. Hope you like crap.
That might be, Roman Reigns and King Corbin, oddly enough, as long as they've been on this main roster, that might be a case of both of them really do need to work with somebody who has more time in the business to get them both to where they need to be. Which is a weird thing because it's like, well, they've been on the main roster for so long. How could you possibly say they're not main roster ready? But the past 5 minutes we've been talking about how this has been a first gear feud, and I think we've seen their level best at this point. But I think in both cases, a tweak here and a fix there, and maybe some insider advice from somebody who's been in the game for a really long time, and Corbin could even be a better heel, and Roman Reigns could be the face they want him to be. But they only work with each other, and then when they're not working with each other, they're not exactly working with long time veterans. So I think it might be like what we were saying before about NXT off air, about how sometimes some of these guys would really benefit from breaking away from their contemporaries and working with an older veteran.
Yeah, well, tough shit, Mark. We're getting Corbin and Reigns again, so we're stuck with it. Perfect. Unfortunately, so... next up, we have the Raw Tag Team Champions, CrossFit Jesus, and I'm not your buddy pal Murphy, versus the Street Profits. Poor Buddy Murphy lost his first name. What are you going to do, man? That's WWE. Tag Team title match, Mark, coming out of Raw when the Street Profits got involved in Seth's little mission to take over the company there. What are you thinking on this tag title match?
All four guys can work. All four guys can, if they're allowed to kick it up a notch, have the ability to do so. This could be a lot of flippity-doos. This could be a high-impact match. I'm actually looking forward to it. when I looked up the match roster this morning, I hadn't known that this was going to be one of the matches, so I'm just seeing this now for the first time, and I got really excited. I like the Street Profits when they're not talking, and I like Seth Rollins when he's not talking, and Murphy never talks. And I liked him when he was in the dubstep tag team with Alexa Bliss on NXT. I thought they were a pretty good tag team. I enjoyed watching them wrestle then. So I have high hopes for this. That this is beyond my usual sarcasm. I think I'm going to enjoy this one. I think it's going to be a really fun, high impact, athletic match.
So who do you got winning?
Oh, Rollins and Murphy by a country mile.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I look at this match. I look at all 4 guys involved. There is no reason this should not, at the very least, be good. Definitely, like you said, if they open up a little bit and they just let them go out there and don't overbook this shit and let them have a really a good time, could be even a great match because the Street Profits have proven they can go. Murphy's awesome. Seth Rollins can go. Just let them do their shit, man. I mean, that's all I'm asking for this. I mean, I kind of side with you in that I doubt we're getting a title change, but I don't think it's outside the possibility of strapping up the Street Profits because one would think that Seth is probably moving on to a Mania singles match with Kevin Owens. That's kind of what I'm feeling.
Speaking of feuds that have gone on for a decade.
Yeah. But yeah, no, this definitely has a lot of potential just looking at everybody involved. And I am looking forward to it. Probably will be one of the better matches on the card if I had to guess.
Yeah, give me 10 to 20 minutes of these guys just going balls to the walls, then send out the Authors of Pain to break the Street Profits in half, and Seth Rollins and Murphy retain.
Fair enough. Next up, we have the Universal Championship on the line. The Fiend defending against Bill Goldberg.
Yes!
And my first thought is, this just feels like such a horrible clash of styles because you have a guy who is really good in short bursts and that people love to see wreck other people in 90 seconds. Facing off against a guy who seemingly only does really good with Daniel Bryan, and then otherwise is booked in matches that go way too long while he sells 18 finishers. So, one of my general things is there are people out there that will tell you that the Fiend is massively over, that the fans are into all of his matches, and that he keeps having great matches every time out. I want to inform you that those people are liars. They are not your friends, and you should stop talking to them immediately. There are a lot of good ideas, unfortunately. Unfortunately, there's a lot of good ideas with Bray and the Fiend. He's a smart dude. He has a lot of great ideas. But I think that they don't always fully get edited or that there's too much. And then, you look at those really bad matches with Seth Rollins, some kind of cringeworthy TV segments at times. And then you have Bill Goldberg, who is just absolutely fucking haunted by that horrible match with Undertaker in Saudi Arabia where they almost killed each other. But he's back because the lure of that sweet Saudi money was a little too much for him to walk away, and I can't blame the guy because he's probably going to bank $1 million or so for 10 minutes max of work. I mean, shit, if somebody wants to pay me $1 million for 10 minutes, I'm in. So it's I think part of me would just cackle like a fucking evil villain if he walked in, speared and jackhammered that motherfucker and won.
Oh.
And I can't believe I'm saying this, but honestly, I'd rather have Goldberg win and face Reigns at Mania instead of The Fiend because The Fiend isn't doing a lot for me, dude. I'm sorry. And then the other thing I'm taking into consideration is Mania tickets aren't moving as fast as they'd like. WWE is trying to lock down a deal to sell off major pay-per-views onto another streaming service. I would not throw it out the window of them making the move, the big bill here to face the big dog at Mania. And people were to go, well, they're going to work on this deal, but Goldberg's not going to be around forever. Well, you know what? They got the deal with Fox based highly off of Brock and Ronda Rousey. And where the fuck's Ronda Rousey? They're negotiating a deal. If Goldberg being in WrestleMania maybe pumps, hits the gas a little more on them getting a deal with ESPN Plus or DAZN or whoever the fuck they go with, they're going to do it. So I would not rule out the title change. I'm actually going to go, I'm going to call it. I'm going to go with the Goldberg win here for the title.
I agree with you. And we've been talking for a little while, and in the back of my head I'm going, hey, tone it down. He has a lot of like pure wrestling fans that are not in the mood for your chicanery, Radulich. So I'm fighting the urge to say all I want is just 10 minutes of spear, sit up, no sell, spear again, sit up, no sell. Because if they did 10 minutes of that, I'd find it hilarious. I'd enjoy it. But again, I would see a lot of wrestling fans just storming Connecticut with signs and pitchforks and whatnot. So I'm going to take a deep breath here. I'm going to put that part of me away and say, okay, I like your idea of Goldberg coming away with the title here because I actually don't think The Fiend versus Bray Wyatt, the Fiend versus Roman Reigns at WrestleMania is a great idea. I would love to see them put the title on Goldberg, and I think your idea that for the short period of time that he'll have the title while they're negotiating, looking like with ESPN or whoever, is a good one. The other side of that is the story they've been telling with Bray is that he's this like unstoppable monster. And this is classic WWE. Build up your monster, build up your monster, build up your monster, slay him at WrestleMania with your big hero. Your big hero is Roman Reigns. He has been for the past decade. This is your big monster. These two have to have an inevitable clash. So where else would you have it than WrestleMania here in Tampa? So what do you do then with The Fiend and Goldberg? Goldberg can't go for that long. Even when he was in there with Brock in Orlando a few years ago. I mean, God bless them. They tried. they tried to have an actual wrestling match. And I enjoyed it because I like King Kong versus Godzilla. I certainly enjoy these larger than life characters having a good old Hoss clash. But I don't think anybody walked away from that match wanting to see Goldberg do more than 10 minutes of actual wrestling. How could you? And Bray, and Daniel Bryan was able to pull a great match out of Bray Wyatt with this Fiend gimmick, but nobody else has been able to figure that out. So I'm actually going to go the other way with this. I think they're going to sell you on this. Like, it's going to be a huge, walk to the ramp. There's going to be a big build-up. They're going to be in there. The lights are going to come off. And I think you're actually going to see, Goldberg hit the spear, pick up Bray Wyatt for the jackhammer, and the hand's going to come down, and he's going to do the old mandible claw, reverse out of the jackhammer, just Sister Abigail, boom, good night. Bray wins in a minute. That's my prediction.
Wouldn't be shocked at all. I mean, it would definitely be smart if they're pushing him into the Mania match. I mean, if you can get Bill a job in a minute like that, good for you. I mean, that would be good in building up. And you are right in that, they do build up the monster, and it does feel like Reigns versus him has been the plan. And I'm not going to disagree with any of that, and it might happen. I don't know. For me, it really does nothing for me. I keep saying the mask is his weakness. I'm waiting for some fucker to rip that mask off and beat the shit out of him with it, and that's how they beat him. So
maybe that's what we'll see in Tampa. He'll throw him off the pirate ship, pull his mask off, take him to Ybor. They'll do an entire tour around Tampa.
I jokingly talked with Kevin on one of our last shows that I think one of the biggest injustices of coming into this WrestleMania is the fact that Kairi Sane does not have a marquee singles match so that she could be a big babyface coming in on the pirate ship.
Oh, no, Larry. We have to have the Kabuki Warriors both dressed as evil pirates coming out for their tag team match at WrestleMania. If my kids don't see two Japanese women dressed up as evil pirates, there will be hell to pay. I tell you that right now.
I mean, I'm all for that too, man, but it's just... you got to use that pirate ship gimmick, dude.
They do. That's what I'm trying to tell you. We need to see Kairi Sane and Asuka come out dressed up as evil pirates coming out of that pirate ship. It's Tampa. We have to see this happen.
That would be spectacular. And we're going to move on. We have another tag team title match. New Day defending the SmackDown tag team titles versus The Miz and John Morrison, the newly reunited team, and kind of feels like we're going back to 2010, but it's kind of what I felt that they were going to do with Morrison. I didn't, I figured they would either throw him in there and maybe give him one title shot, and then he'd go back to this tag team with The Miz, but they just threw him into the tag team right away. And it's not the worst thing because, Miz was kind of floundering. How are you feeling about this one?
I don't watch a lot of SmackDown. I DVR it, and then I never get to watch it. So I didn't realize that they had actually put The Miz and John Morrison together. First time I saw John Morrison back was at the Royal Rumble. And I like him. I like him a lot. I loved him in his singles run when he first started doing that gimmick. The New Day's fun. My wife's brother actually went to school with Big E. So I get to hear about that every time they come out. Every single time. So, I think they'll put on this probably opens the show, and I'm sure it'll be a fine wrestling match. The New Day are always fun and competent. The Miz and John Morrison were fun together and clicked very well. I see the New Day. I have been waiting for the New Day to break up. I have been waiting for Big E to finally turn on Kofi. Maybe this is where it happens. Maybe the Miz and John Morrison pick up the tag titles here, and this is where we get our big New Day split. Or it'll be more of the same gruel that the WWE serves us week in and week out. Nothing ever changes, and it's all fine. It's just fine.
Yeah, I look at this, and I kind of mentioned it before. All I can think of is, if I'm being completely honest with myself, is that Miz, through no fault of his own, had a completely shitty 2019. The Shane McMahon feud fucking wrecked him. He never got to get any revenge. And then he just kind of existed until The Fiend made him look like a giant fucking geek. And I was worried about that Miz face turn from the start, but he worked hard and did well with it until the booking just totally sandbagged him with that Shane feud. I mean, he looked like the biggest geek. He never won. He never got any real revenge. Just no good at all. And, the worst part is, when Kevin Owens beat Shane to quote-unquote get Shane fired, they couldn't even let Miz come out there and, hit a skull-crushing finale and then have him and Owens, do a Bischoff and throw him in a fucking trash truck or something. I mean, they didn't give the Miz shit, man. Felt so bad for him.
I don't know when the people who developed the stories in the WWE thought it was a great idea to have the good guys always lose or look terrible. You use the word geek, look like geeks. I don't know when this happened, but it's been going on for a while now, and I don't understand it. Classic storytelling. Your heroes win in the end. Your bad guys get over on them. The good guys fight from underneath, and then they win in the end, and they conquer, and love conquers all. Yay, storytelling. It's trite, but it works. And then there's the WWE. The bad guys win almost all the time. The good guys look terrible, and there's no reason for you to get invested in any of this. Interesting. Artistic. I like what you're thinking here, but why? Why would you do that? And we never really get an answer. They just cause fuck you. That's why, pal. It's good shit.
Exactly. So I mean, so coming out of that and talking about the Miz, I mean, dude obviously needed to change. The return of John Morrison allowed that, and Miz is back being a heel, which he's very good at. And so he and Morrison, I like them being back together. I mean, it feels a little old at times, but I mean, they are fun together. They're a fresh team in the mix, though, even though, I mean, they're an old team, but they're fresh because they haven't been together for almost a decade. The setup was easy. They picked up singles wins over the champions. They won a number one contenders match. It's not hard. Like you said, it's simple storytelling. New Day I find to be a really fun team. They always work hard. They're over. They make for fun champions, but I'd be lying if I said they didn't feel a little stale to me in the role right now. I don't think they're bad. Don't get me wrong. It's yeah, they're the champions still. Yay, it's fine. They're over. Good. I think they'll have a good match, and I would not be surprised to see a title change here, because I kind of think that they'll put them on Miz and Morrison and then probably work into a big multi-man match for Mania.
Yeah, like I said, I'm hoping this is what sets up a New Day breakup, and maybe we get a Kofi Big E match with Xavier Woods somewhere in the middle going. But I love both of you at Mania, but that might be high hopes on my part.
And then I'm guessing, depending on Brock's schedule and if he wants to get out of there early, we'll just call this the main event of the night. WWE Champion Brock Lesnar versus Rick O'Shea. So, my first feeling on this one is I really would have loved if they actually would have heated up Ricochet as a strong babyface for this match. Because it's like he got kicked in the balls, then he kind of helped Brock get eliminated from the Rumble, and then he won a number one contenders match, and that's fine. But before that, he wasn't doing jack shit. Like, build him up a little bit. That's all I'm asking. So, the match does make sense. It is a fresh match. And, Again, I wish there was a little more thought ahead of time to get him really ready for this. I think Ricochet's great. If Brock wants to work, we know that he does thrive with smaller guys like Bryan, AJ, and Balor. So if, and Mark, this is a big if, Brock is feeling froggy and Paul can talk him into it, and Paul is reportedly really behind Ricochet, I mean, they could actually have a regular match, and if they do, I think it could be great. There's a lot of potential here. I don't know what kind of match we're going to get. It could be 3 minutes of Ricochet trying to fly around and Brock killing him with suplexes and F5s, and that's it. But at the end of the day, Mark, I want you to think back to when Brock Lesnar won Money in the Bank and would dance around with the briefcase. That's pretty much what he's going to do with the title at the end of this. He's going to dance on Ricochet's corpse and retain the title.
I own the Brock Lesnar t-shirt with the Money in the Bank as a boombox. I thought that was great. Oh, that was the highlight of my wrestling year last year. Good old breakdancing Brock with the boombox.
I'm watching a GIF of it right now. It's hypnotizing.
Him dancing in the Royal Rumble was fantastic. I need more dancing Brock in my life. You're another one of your classics.
Mariachi Brock.
Mariachi Brock, yes, dancing Mariachi Brock. Look. There's two kinds of Brock Lesnar's. There's the Dean Ambrose versus Brock at WrestleMania in Texas that almost made me stop being a wrestling fan, that whole event. It was so bad. Where he's not motivated, according to Dean Ambrose. He doesn't want to really do anything. It's the bare minimum to get in and get out and go back to wherever the hell his farm is in Canada. Then there's the motivated, interested, creative, willing to have a sense of humor about himself, Brock. And I'm hoping it's the latter and not the former that shows up here. Because Ricochet is Ricochet. He's going to be super athletic, fun to watch. He'll come. Please don't come out in another superhero costume. Please, somebody. I don't know if this is going to get up. I guess this will get posted before it would have to be the Super Showdown. Someone in the know, get this message to Ricochet. Stop cosplaying as a superhero. Enough already. All of you. Ugh. Get some adult gear, you geek. Hey, I'm starting to talk like you guys now. I swear to God, I wasn't using the word geek before this. Brock Lesnar, Ricochet, has the potential of being really, really fun. I think it has now the possibility of being an outstanding main event because you're right, Brock likes the psychology of his matches where he likes to be the big monster and he wants these smaller baby faces who are fighting from underneath, and he gives them just enough to give the hope spots and get the crowd really into it, like, oh my God, they might actually, nope, he's dead. And that's Brock, and that's fine. And Brock does really, really well with those when he wants to. So hopefully that's what we get here, because if it's another I don't want to be here Dean Ambrose situation, this is going to be trash.
I agree. And I hope we get, like I said, and it's the big if, I hope we get Brock wanting to work a little bit, because it's, again, I don't need like a 30-minute match, man, but just give me 12 to 15 of Ricochet flying around, getting some fun hope spots. Brock eventually kills him with all of his shit, and just give me a fun match, because I think it'd be really good. And like, I love like the Balor, AJ, and Bryan matches. He had great matches with all those guys. And it's just like, it shows you, like, I get down on Brock from time to time, but like, I also really like Brock because he can do really good stuff when he wants to. And that's like kind of all I'm asking here. But like, I don't know, man. If Brock walks out first on this one, we're getting like 3 minutes and Ricochet is dead.
Yeah.
More dead than he would be in a longer match. Just dead.
Ricochet's going to hit his pose, turn around, get suplexed, 1, 2, 3. The music won't have even stopped playing yet.
Yeah, then Brock will dance like New Jack in ECW.
Well, hang on, Larry. Let's not go crazy here. If we get more dancing Brock, 4 stars. I will accept nothing less.
There you go. So, yeah, I mean, I look at this card, like, I'm not going to hide. I'm not a big fan of these Saudi shows. This does not look like a horrible card on paper. It really doesn't. A lot of it is going to come down to booking and if they're going to work above a house show level. Because a lot of the times that is the problem on these shows. It's not, people like to get into big debates with me, but the biggest problem is like, this is a $50 million house show. They're guaranteed that money, and a lot of the time, these guys just go in there, collect their extra money, and they leave. And I don't necessarily blame them, because I get what they're doing. But on the other hand, it's like there's never been a lot of great on these shows. I think the best matches on these shows, like the Mansoor and Cesaro match, I really liked, thought it was really good. I think maybe it was like the first Saudi show, even though it was kind of a house show, play the hits match. John Cena and Triple H actually had a really good match. But then you just get a lot of like, at best, 2-star specials and questionable booking, and the crowd is into some things, they're not into other things. But I look at this card and there's a lot of talent on it, and again, it all comes down to who wants to work hard and how they want to book it. If it's just going to be Ricochet dying in 3 minutes, I mean, that's fine because it's Brock and he's going to Mania to face Drew. I mean, obviously Brock's going to win. But then again, it's also kind of a negative because we're losing what could potentially be a really good match. Like New Day matches are normally really good. They work hard on pay-per-view in these specials. Miz and Morrison, we'll see how much they've been working together here a little bit now since coming back together. Hopefully they'll be gelling again together really well. That could be good. The Raw Tag title match has a ton of potential, as we talked about, because Street Profits are tremendously fun. Seth and Buddy are really good, and it's just like, let those dudes, it doesn't have to, again, I'm not asking for 30-minute classics. Give them 12 to 15 minutes to work a fun balls-to-the-wall sprint. It'll fit all their styles. It'll be a lot of fun. So, I mean, I look at it, I don't hate this card. Don't hate it at all. Think it has potential. But again, it comes down to effort and booking. So, we'll see what we get Thursday, Mark.
I completely agree with you. I've called these glorified house shows, and that's what they are for a while now. But this one, if you'll notice, it wasn't a February main roster show. The Royal Rumble was the 26th, and then this one's the 27th. For all intents and purposes, this is their February pay-per-view. And it got booked that way. So instead of a slapdash thrown together bunch of matches to satisfy the Saudi crowd, they actually booked to this show. And the next one I think is Elimination Chamber, which
March
is
8th.
Yes, sir. March 8th. And so, my problem with the WWE has been too many crunched together shows. They're like within like a week of each other sometimes. This feels spaced out, and so instead of it feeling like a Saudi show, this feels like the February show. This is their what was the one they used to do in February? Like back in the Attitude Era, there was the February show between the Royal Rumble and WrestleMania, and it was always like that bump in the road to get to WrestleMania show, like No Way Out, I think it was. This feels like No Way Out. They're just doing No Way Out in Saudi Arabia, which I like. I would prefer that than who wants to go to Saudi Arabia? Great, pick a partner. That's who you're wrestling. Which is how these other, and then at the top, what nostalgia act is lying around that wants to get a quick payday? Because that's how these shows have felt in the past. And I didn't watch a lot of them for that reason. I didn't watch the DX one. I only watched the Goldberg Undertaker one for the Schadenfreude. I heard that they almost killed each other, and I'm like, well, that sounds like fun. And I went and I watched that match only. I watched the Kane and Tyson Fury one because it was Kane and Tyson, but I actually watched that whole show. So this one I'm actually legitimately excited for. I'm legitimately excited for Brock and Ricochet, Fiend and Goldberg. I think there's the potential to have some solid matches on here, and that by the end of it, I won't have to go walk into the woods to live deliberately like I usually do at the end of a WWE show.
Fair enough. Are you surprised that I mean, I guess because Taker's working Mania, maybe not so much him. Are you surprised no Triple H and Undertaker again?
I don't know if I'm not as surprised so much as I am grateful. Just stay the fuck home, please.
Yeah, because it doesn't feel like we're getting a Triple H WrestleMania match, because normally they've started to build for that already.
Good!
No, I mean, I'm not complaining. I'm just saying maybe he's finally resigned to the fact that I should be the office dude running NXT.
You know, whatever he needs to make him feel happy and complete and satisfied with life, and if that is the adulation he gets from his NXT children, then that makes me happy for him. Because him seeking all of those things in one last epic match in the ring, oh, just shoot me now. Both my knees and my head.
Mania is already going to be like 13 hours this year. I don't need the Triple H epic shoehorned in.
Yes, and in his cosplay outfits where he's playing Conan. By the way, him versus Sting, that entrance is still my favorite ridiculous over-the-top Triple H entrance of all time. And nothing's ever going to be better than that, so please stop trying. I'm kind of done with him in anything. I was done with him in Miami. My God, him and Triple H and Shawn took a final bow. My wife was sitting next to me. We went and saw that one live. I'm like crying at the end. I'm like, oh, it's the end of an era. And then these bastards, they won't go away. So I know we're getting The Undertaker's yearly appearance at WrestleMania. It's fine. My kids will be there with me. It'll be the first time they see The Undertaker live. So that'll be a kind of a fun thing, like a reason for me not to hate it. But the sooner we get to Triple H and Undertaker and some of these older guys deciding never again, the happier I'll be.
I couldn't agree more. So yeah, that is the WWE Super Showdown preview. It takes place on the 27th on Thursday, 12 in the afternoon. I will have full coverage, live coverage on the site that day. And again, Mark and I will be back after AEW Revolution on the 29th, and we'll talk about the Saudi show as well as AEW. Mark, thank you for popping on. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. Can't wait to talk to you again to review those two shows.
Do you want to show anything before you go?
Yes, please.
Go ahead.
We are the Radulich and Broadcasting Network podcast is fully integrated now with W2M Network. You can find all of our shows at w2mnet.com. You can also, on any of your podcast apps, put in W2M Network, and you will find all of our shows plus all of the other W2M shows all together in one stream. We do our own wrestling reviews. We review heavy metal albums, all the latest movies. We just did Sonic the Hedgehog, TV shows. We've got reviews for old and new. So next week we've got Lock and Key coming up, the comic and the show. Last week we did the Birds of Prey movie. We did one of the comic books, and we did the terrible 2002 show. So all of that's in our feeds. We also do boxing coverage. We just put up our preview of Wilder versus Fury 2 as myself, Pat Mullen, and John Warr of Boxing and Brews. And tonight we'll be doing a live watch-along, which will be up shortly after the fight is finished. So you can check that out. If you like your wrestling but you love your boxing, we cover all the big boxing events that are on every weekend. So Larry's over there doing wrestling. I got the boxing covered. Robert Winfrey's got the MMA. Really, where else do you need to go, right?
Fair enough. That's right. So, again, thank you, Mark. It was good talking to you, and I'll be talking to you this weekend. And that is going to finish us up for segment 2 of the show, and Steve Cook will be joining me in a moment. All right, welcome back to the final segment of the show, and I am now joined by Steve Cook. Steve, how are you?
Oh, hey. Doing wonderful, sir.
Good. So if you've been listening, Ian Hamilton and I did a deep dive on NXT UK. Mark Radulich and I previewed WWE Super Showdown. And now Steve and I are going to go a little old school. We've had some retro requests. So today we are going to go back to 2009, Steve. TNA Lockdown 2009 from Philadelphia.
Lockdown, which, Larry, a couple years later when Cincinnati hosted Lockdown, I believe it was 2011, I want to say. That was the one I went to, yes. Yes, sir. I'm not asking to watch that again, by the way. I'm not.
Okay.
I think once was enough for me on that particular one until we can watch it free. But yeah, so Lockdown was a interesting concept, as we all know. I believe is now I don't know if this is a shoot or not, but it was said that the Lockdown pay-per-view being an all-cage pay-per-view was the brainchild of the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes.
That's right.
Now, is that official, or is that the gimmick?
I do believe that was the fact. I believe Dusty was a big proponent of trying this, and they ended up doing it. And they're actually they're doing a Impact Plus special at the end of the month. They're bringing back Lockdown in March.
They're bringing everything back, aren't they?
Yeah, they're like
TNA. They're bringing back Lockdown. There's
Sacrifice is Saturday night, later tonight as we're recording, and yeah, I mean, might as well use the names if you own them.
Sure.
So.
When was the last Lockdown they had? Do you remember?
I don't remember the last official Lockdown pay-per-view, but they did use the Lethal Lockdown match here and there on Impact as like blow-offs and stuff. So
yeah, makes sense.
But yes, we have the Lockdown pay-per-view from Philadelphia. It was at the Liquor Center. Attendance reportedly, according to the cage match, 4,500 people.
Yeah, that was Liquor Center. Has become a venue for All Elite Wrestling's Dynamite program.
That's right.
They're going back there pretty soon, right?
I believe so. So, Steve, we start off the show with the X Division Elimination Escape match with an X, no E, which saw Champion Suicide, Sheik Abdul-Bashir, Consequences Creed, Jay Lethal, and Kiyoshi. Sheik Abdul-Bashir is Sean Daivari. Consequences Creed, obviously Xavier Woods. Jay Lethal is Jay Lethal. And Kiyoshi was one of the Japanese imports, and he played Suicide for a short period as well.
He did not play Suicide in this match, obviously.
Although if he did, it was pretty fucking amazing.
It really would have been. Now, would have been Frankie Kazarian at this point?
Yes.
Yes, I believe so, because Daniels is doing something else. But and I know Sheik Abdul-Bashir, of course, Daivari, the older brother of one of your personal favorite wrestlers nowadays, right? Ariya Daivari?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, I'll give him credit. Daivari was in a really good match last night with teaming with Kendrick versus Oney Lorcan and Danny Burch in a no DQ match on 205 Live.
Well, I'd hope so with those three guys.
Yeah.
I mean, come on now. But I got to tell you, Larry, not a fan of the escape match. I'm not going to lie. I'm not a fan of the gimmick, really. It's, you know how I feel about cage matches where you need to escape anyway. I always thought that was lame. And you got a multi-man. You got 5 people in here. I don't know why you have 5 people. That's a weird number to have. 5. You got 2 kind of tag teams here. You got Suicide. And it wasn't a bad match. I'm not saying it's bad by any stretch. Like the guys in the match did some interesting stuff. I don't know if it was much of a story, but they did some interesting stuff. And yeah, it was a one of those high flying matches you like to have to open a show. But I thought the stipulation was kind of whack.
It was. I mean, I will say this: Suicide retained the title in the match. The finish, it is escape rules. The finish saw Suicide climb the cage, fight off Kiyoshi, and then dive onto a pile of security geeks to win. It was a good finish, but it was during this time where we were getting a lot of worthless multiple man clusterfuck style X Division matches, and obviously you didn't have Joe Daniels and AJ involved like you did back in the day a little bit, and I understand that, but you were just getting all these clusterfuck matches, and it was really doing the division no good. The belt didn't feel important. The match was okay. I didn't hate it, but I'm with you. I'm not a big fan of the Escape the Cage match, and it just kind of existed. Like, I didn't hate it. I didn't really like it. It was like, at the end of the day, I'm like, okay, cool finish. Thank you. We're done.
And speaking of cool finish, which, it goes to show the point I was going to make about it is that I completely forgot about the finish up until like 5 seconds ago. When I watched the show, I thought, oh, that's pretty cool. Nice little spot. The guy dives off the top of the cage onto the floor and all those guys. But it just goes to show you at this point, you can, even when you're doing crazy stuff like that, it doesn't mean anything. Like we saw on Wednesday night with Cody doing the moonsault off top of the cage. That meant a hell of a lot more than this.
Exactly, it did. We moved on next, Steve, to the Queen of the Cage match. And this saw ODB, Daphne, Madison Rayne, and Sojo Bolt. And ODB won this match. ODB, out of this match at the time, it's going to sound like faint praise, was the best worker of these four. Daphne wasn't really a good professional wrestler, but had a ton of charisma. Madison Rayne was still really young in her career and hadn't gotten any good. And I never thought Sojo Bolt was any good, and thought this was kind of a bad match, dude. Just did not enjoy it.
No, it was not particularly memorable in any way, shape, or form. And the thing I kind of thought of while watching this match is very reminiscent of a lot of cards, a lot of matches you'd see back in this particular time frame in pro wrestling, where you remember our ROH shows and a lot of indie shows. There were so many multi-man matches on every freaking show. You'd have the four-corner survival, you'd have the six-pack match, you'd have this match, that match is. It's just a bunch of multi-man stuff, and it all kind of flowed together, and you didn't really remember any of it at the end of the day. And this was just basically here. I assume it's here to put ODB over because she was getting over as a character at this point. And Daphne and Madison had a thing going with the beautiful people, and I never hated Sojo Bolt. She was there. She was decent enough at times, but never really going to be a top star or nothing. So. Definitely an epitome of a match that was just kind of there. I didn't love it, didn't despise it or anything, but I don't think it accomplished much of anything either, unless I missed ODB's run as the Queen of the Cage match and defending her Queen of the Cage match title against people, which would have been something.
Unfortunately, that did not happen.
You can how they have the King of the Death match title. You could have the Queen of the Cage match title.
There you go. So next up, we had our second title match of the evening. The IWGP Junior Heavyweight Tag Team titles were on the line. This match involved the champions, who were at the time the Motor City Machine Guns, facing off with No Limit. And for those of you younger listeners that don't know who No Limit are, No Limit is none other than Yujiro Takahashi and your current and defending IWGP and Intercontinental Champion Tetsuya Naito. Back in his junior heavyweight days, and they're facing off with the Latin American Exchange LAX, which was Homicide, sure I can buy as a junior, and Hernandez. And apparently they were a trio of juniors because Hernandez was a fucking house at this point.
I don't know what universe Hernandez would have ever been a junior heavyweight in.
When he was 6?
Maybe, if that. No, that was ridiculous. I'm sure I don't know how New Japan felt about that one.
It was a weird match, to say the least, just looking at it. The good news was Motor City Machine Guns were a great tag team. No Limit was really good at the time. Latin American Exchange, really good at the time. Champions retain just under 12 minutes, Steve. And I thought this was a good little match. I enjoyed it. Thought it had a lot of good action. No real complaints. And I liked the story throughout of Chris Sabin is essentially trying to be the giant killer against Hernandez. And it constantly fails until, obviously, him and Shelley are smart enough to work together, start taking everybody out. And, the Guns, just superior teamwork in the end. So, really enjoyed that. Good match. Machine Guns, always a great tag team to go back and watch. And, again, just really weird watching LAX, this incarnation of LAX in a junior heavyweight tag title match because of Hernandez.
Yeah, definitely a lot of interesting stuff going on. You know how I love Alex Shelley, and I was always a big Machine Gun fan. And it's interesting to see Naito here at this spot. And you have to give TNA credit at least for booking him better than they booked Okada. So, No Limit did a lot better than Okada did in TNA. Hernandez's spot in this match was pretty weird, but it was a good little match. But I would say that this kind of, to me, is the epitome of the match that would have been better without a steel cage.
Definitely.
If Shelley and Sabin were allowed to fly around, if Naito and Yujiro were allowed to fly around, well, hell, if Homicide was able to do his dive, and Hernandez is a bit of a flyer himself, so this is definitely a match that not only didn't need a cage, because I don't think it didn't even play into the match that much, it would have been 10 times better without it.
It really would have, because it's I watched this match back, and I all I could think of, and I completely agree with you, is this was a 3 or so star match. It was a good match. you take the cage away and you take the handcuffs away with it, and like they do roughly the same match and throw in a little flash and dive, they're probably bordering on a 4-star match. Because it's just like you said, it felt really restricted. They didn't use the cage all that well. So it's like, again, the drawback to the Lockdown pay-per-view, it's an interesting concept and people like cage matches. And then like you add a bunch of weird stipulations like in this next match. And then it's like, a match like this, it's like, why? Did not need it at all.
No, it didn't. But I would say probably ahead of your days for the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Tag Team Championship that we've seen in quite a while.
There you go. So,
no, you love those New Japan Tag Team divisions.
Oh, yeah. At least I watched a great tag title match this past week. There was Roppongi 3K defending against Rocky Romero and Taguchi. They had a great match. So, and
that sounds good.
Yeah. And the banger of the week though was fucking Ishii and Shingo.
Ooh,
so good.
Fancy.
Haas is beating the shit out of each other. So good.
Always good. Speaking of Haas's beating the shit out of each other, kind of.
Yeah, the Doomsday Chamber of Blood match featuring Matt Morgan and Abyss, and the gimmick here was, in order to get a pin or submission, you had to bust your opponent open and make them bleed first.
Blood and guts.
That's right. Tawdry Steve. Not good
right.
shit.
That's right.
This is one of those matches that, in theory, in 2009, you think probably would have been a really good match because Abyss thrives in these kind of matches, and obviously Abyss was, before he got broken down, Abyss was really good and one of the better big men in wrestling. And Matt Morgan was a dude with a ton of potential and a good look. Jim Cornette thought he was a future WrestleMania main eventer. And then Kurt Angle, that son of a bitch, did it again. He fooled everybody and had like one great match with Matt Morgan. And everybody was in on the Matt Morgan train, brother, because he did it with Ken Anderson. He did it with Matt Morgan. Christ, when he was in WWE at the time, remember he worked matches with Tatanka and Marty Jannetty and got them fucking signed. Well, these guys can still go. Jesus Christ, look at this. We need to sign them up, and everybody's forgetting they're working with Kurt Angle.
Funny how it works.
So, Doomsday Chamber of Blood match, and I don't know. It was a match. I mean, Abyss, he tapped an artery.
Oh yeah.
Of course, do that. Of course, he did that via blade while Matt Morgan was like fucking eating lunch. After he like kicked a chair into his face, he was just fucking walking around and doing nothing, and it's like, I don't know. They made like a lot of weird decisions during the match. Like they were trying too hard to like make the crowd really care. Like I know it sounds weird, but they were doing these weird things throughout the match. It never really worked for me. I didn't hate it. I didn't think it was bad. They worked hard. Abyss tried, but it was okay. I think a lot of it was just kind of the weird booking and stipulation. Like, yay, it's a cage. Yay, we got blood. And then it was like, and then it like just was there.
Yeah, I mean, it was there, and it was fine, for me, for the most part. I mean, it was a kind of your run-of-the-mill standard Abyss blood kind of match. He did a lot of these back around this time, and it wasn't terrible or nothing up until the finish, when we saw the appearance of Abyss's psychologist at the time, Dr. Stevie.
Yes, Dr. Stevie.
Who we found out wasn't, believe it or not, I mean, I know everybody was surprised and shocked and just, couldn't believe that Dr. Stevie wound up being Stevie Richards. It was just one of the biggest surprises in TNA history, I would say.
What?
I know, right?
Are you serious?
You had the segments with the Abyss talking, and Dr. Stevie was off the screen the whole time, and you could obviously tell it's Stevie Richards' voice, but I guess we weren't supposed to think it was actually Stevie Richards, because Tenay and West were kind of selling it like a surprise, but maybe they didn't watch the segments, who the hell knows, but...
Remember, everybody...
No, so Stevie comes out, and, he doesn't want Abyss to use the chair, because he's trying to get him not to use weapons for reasons, and he basically ends up helping Morgan win, and it kind of falls flat, to be honest with you. Like, nobody really cared.
Yeah, it was a match.
And when it's an ECW guy in Philadelphia, nobody really cares. That kind of tells you something.
Unfortunately, this is a correct take, Steve. So next
But
up,
it's Stevie Richards, though. So let's be honest. On the rung of ECW guys, Richards is pretty far down the list.
Judging by the reaction he got, I think JT Smith would have been more over than him at this stage.
I would have preferred to JT Smith. That would have been a surprise. Old Dr. JT. I don't know.
So we went on to another title match, Steve. Obviously inside the steel cage, the Knockouts title match. Angelina Love defeating champion Awesome Kong and Taylor Wilde at a smidge under 7 minutes. This match wasn't bad at all. They were transitioning the belt to Angelina Love because it kind of felt like we gave Kong a run, but I guess it kind of felt at the time like they wanted to have a pretty girl as champion like WWE did.
Probably.
And but the thing that hurt this match is Angelina Love got hurt during this match. Kind of messed up the finish a bit.
That finish wasn't too good.
She looked really good early in the match. And like she was countering Kong's big stuff. And, this was back when everybody thought like Angelina Love was going to be really good.
Yep.
And and Taylor Wilde was a really good babyface and everything. And it just felt really bad. It's like Angelina got like kind of knocked down. They improvised the finish, and Kong ended up kicking Taylor Wilde into getting pinned, and like it was okay. Obviously, it was hurt by the injury thing, and thankfully it didn't go longer. But it felt like a match that if there wasn't an injury, it felt also like a match that needed a little more time. But unfortunately, again, we couldn't get that because Angelina Love got the shit knocked out of her, and was pretty sure she was concussed there.
Yeah. Another one of those matches that would have been better without a cage, although they did at least use the cage in this one to tie Kong's braids into the cage door there, which I thought was a unique, clever kind of thing to do. Keep her out of action and keep her indisposed for the eventual finish, which could have been better. And Angelina at this point, she did have a lot of potential. She never quite got to the level we thought she could, although I think she held the Knockouts title like 5, 6, 7 times or something.
Yeah, like 5
So
times.
they kept going that well. They definitely saw her as one of their top stars, and the Beautiful People was always a pretty overact, but never quite reached that potential. And unfortunately, somebody else who didn't quite reach the potential we thought she could have had was Taylor Wilde, who I thought was a top-notch babyface back in the day. Had the look, had the wrestling ability, had pretty much most of what you could ask for. But unfortunately, she never quite got going to that next level. And sadly, I think most people these days remember her for working at Sunglass Hut while she was Knockouts champion.
Unfortunately. Although, Steve, I think she may be returning for that TNA reunion show here over Mania weekend because she's back on Twitter.
Oh, wow.
And then posted something like, you never know what's going to happen.
And that's something I'd be interested to see.
Yeah, and a bunch of the knockouts, like Jordan Grace and them, were like retweeting it, and Gail Kim was all happy about it. So, yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing her pop up and work the show. Yeah.
And see if she's got anything left. Who knows? I don't know how old she is off the top of my head, but I assume she might still have some time to do something.
Exactly. So, we had another title match next, and this was for 2 titles. This was for the TNA World Tag Team titles held by Beer Money and the IWGP Tag Team Championships held by Team 3D, and it was a Philly street fight in a cage.
Yeah.
So,
I will say, though, I did... the one thing I really did enjoy about this match, which I thought was a perfectly fine match, but it's patently ridiculous to have a Philadelphia street fight on an all-steel cage pay-per-view. But at the same time, at least it gave an excuse to get outside the cage and kind of freshen things up that way by having 3D and Beer Money go through the crowd. And just, it's kind of your typical hardcore, almost kind of slash... attitude era main event style wrestling where they just go into the crowd and brawl around for a while, then eventually return to the ring. But it was a nice change of pace, I thought, from what we've been seeing so far.
Yeah, I thought this was a really good match. I thought it was one of the better matches on the show overall. A lot of good spots. I thought they did a good job of kind of recreating that ECW feel to it, obviously with the Dudleys in Philly. And that's not always easy to do. I thought the finish was fine, where Storm accidentally hits the cage door into Rude's face. He eats 3D. And that was fine. I was with the two titles on the line. I was kind of maybe hoping like a grander finish. Maybe kind of felt a little flat, but not bad. I mean, I really did like the match though. And the good thing at this time were the Dudleys were really smart and they worked within the confines of what they knew how to do, and they could still put on a really good match. And again, I thought this one was one of the better matches of the night. I did enjoy it. Like I said, kind of flat finish aside, but I thought it was really good. One of the best things on the show.
And we all remember what great tag team beer money was back in its time, and I thought even if they came up short here, they looked perfectly good in this match. Team 3D didn't. They've eaten guys up before from time to time. They didn't do that here.
Agreed. Next up was the Lethal Lockdown cage match, which is War Games with one cage. And this was Team Jarrett, AJ Styles, Christopher Daniels, Jeff Jarrett, Samoa Joe versus Team Angle, which was Booker T, Kevin Nash, Kurt Angle, and Scott Steiner. This was
also pretty much known as the Main Event Mafia.
Yeah, Main Event Mafia versus Frontline.
The Frontline. Yeah. Oh God, what a lame. Just a lame thing in general. Am I right?
Yeah.
Oh, Frontline business. Yeah.
So
not great.
It did. It went 23 minutes. And the babyface team of Team Jarrett won, and they were doing the basically the whole story was that Jarrett had returned, and they were teasing the old Nikita Koloff War Games gimmick with him. Can they trust Jeff Jarrett?
Yeah,
and because that was the whole thing, because he had screwed everybody over in the past, including all three of his teammates here. And Jeff Jarrett gets in there, and everybody thinks he's going to turn, but it's actually a non-swerve where he starts grabbing guitars, tosses them to his teammates, and they run wild. So the babyfaces get the big win here. And then you got AJ doing shit like diving through the top of the fucking cage.
Yeah, that's pretty stupid. I don't think he even hit anybody.
I was supposed to say, like, nobody fucking caught him, which had to suck. So it's like, but no, it's a good match. I enjoyed it. One of the better things on the show. And the problem with this is that, like, when TNA and Impact do the Lockdown match, the problem is that everybody knows that the money is in the end of the match. Because the match doesn't start until everybody's in, and then back in the day, they had the gimmick where they closed the roof on the cage and had all the weapons and shit. And, it's basically nobody really would start caring until that happened. So you had, like, I don't know, 15 minutes of people kind of tepidly reacting.
Yeah, and you got to have some really good action to keep the people interested throughout all that stuff. And let's be honest, most of the talent in this match was on one team.
It was.
Angle was still good for Main Event Mafia, of course, but I mean, AJ, Daniels, and Joe are all on the same team. So, and Jarrett wasn't bad either. He was no slouch, and I thought Jarrett's story was good because, as you said, for the past, for the first 7 years of TNA, Jeff Jarrett was like the biggest asshole of all time, pretty much. He screwed everybody. He had that endless period of matches where he just did all sorts of crazy BS, and it would not have been surprising to see him turn against these guys here. But no, he actually was a man of his word and stuck to it. And now the timing on this, I am trying to remember. I'm going to say that this was before Jeff Jarrett hooked up with Karen Angle. That would have been before, right?
I believe so.
Or would have been during, maybe?
I don't really remember. It's so fucking mixed together with all the other shit, and it's also hard to remember because him and Kurt feuded a bunch and stuff, and like they feuded like before, during, and after, it feels. So it's like it all runs together. So
it really does. But it was a fun little match. I enjoyed it. The first part can be a little long, but once it got to the main part, it was perfectly fine. Although I still feel bad for poor AJ on that. That was ridiculous.
Oh, Jesus.
I don't know what he's thinking. I don't know he's even thinking of that, even trying that, first of all. And at least the guys were nice enough to take the bump, I suppose.
Yeah.
He hits nobody, and they all fall down afterwards, so I guess...
That was like some of the worst shit in early TNA. Like, they would do these cage matches, and you would get these big spots. Like, there was one, it was like, I think it was like Chase Stevens or one of the Naturals. They were doing this like tag team cage match. And this motherfucker goes up to the top of the cage, busts out this beautiful like corkscrew moonsault, and all you hear is,
yeah.
And this fucker bounced like 5 feet off the mat because nobody caught him. And I was like, oh my God, guys.
I guess the TNA lights were just easy to lose people in. I don't know.
I don't know what it was, but it's like, God, guys, come on. You know, like, catch a brother. Do him a solid.
Yeah, it was weird. But then, you know, Team Jarrett wins the match, and they celebrate for about 5 seconds before the lights go out. And I was hoping for Sabu, because when, you know, if you're in Philadelphia and the lights go out, it's got to be Sabu, right?
Yeah.
It should have been, but no. We got some kind of music. We weren't sure what kind of music it was, and eventually the name Bobby Lashley pops up on the screen. We see Bobby Lashley, and he walks out and he points at everybody.
Yes, this was the classic TNA debut of a former WWE guy at the time. Arrive on a pay-per-view, do nothing, point at somebody while everybody acts like they're afraid and leaves. Kurt
Angle appeared happy, and everybody else was just kind of standing around like, so I guess he teamed with, I guess he joined Main Event Mafia. I have no freaking idea. Or maybe they teased it and he didn't. He might have done not a dumb damn thing. I don't know.
He didn't do much. That first TNA run he had was like nothing. And it wasn't until he came back later on and like eventually won the world title and stuff that he was having a lot of good stuff, and then everybody forgets actually went back to WWE.
Yeah. A shame. But yeah, and does it go without saying that nobody cared?
I mean, I believe that's safe to say. So,
yeah.
Our main event of the evening, TNA World Heavyweight Champion The Stinger versus Mick Foley. Now, Steve, I will give them credit in that they had built this matchup actually really well and made it feel like a big deal. And if you know your wrestling history, Bash at the Beach 1992, Sting and the Cactus Jack, was one of those matches that you go back in Foley's career, and you go back and you look at matches where he went above and beyond to help make somebody. And he did his best in that match to make Sting look like $1 million and the ultimate babyface. Later in his career, you go his matches with Triple H, matches with The Rock, matches with Randy Orton, matches with Edge. I mean, Foley like made a career out of this. And so it's obviously way later. And,
just a bit.
And it came at a really weird time because Sting was clearly injured. He was having problems and he needed to drop the belt. And it really should have been the Angle. But they never did it.
Or anybody else, really.
Yeah. So,
should be honest, it could have been anybody else.
Foley's coming into this match not wrestling regularly for the last 10 years. Okay, he had sporadic appearances, did some big matches. He could still go at times, but Mick was older and slower. And going in, there were like people that didn't really think Foley was going to win the title because everybody at the time thought that not only is he the lovable loser, but like the long-term booking plans all pointed to either Joe or AJ. Because Joe was on like just a rampage of violence. AJ was rolling along, not destroying people like Joe, but he was rolling along, and it really felt like either of those guys were going to win the title, get to that next level, and finally become that homegrown star and big household name. And it didn't happen here. What we got instead was essentially what this felt like, and I believe Arnold Furious might have used this back in the day, because I remember reading his stuff. It felt like WCW spending a year building to Sting and Hogan, and obviously Sting won the title and stuff like that, but instead they had Hogan lose the title to Bob Backlund in 99. A lovable comedy gentleman with his best years behind him, and that's kind of what TNA did here tonight. on this show. So you had Mick Foley and you had Sting, and they worked about 16 minutes. And I found it to be very hit and miss. I thought that both of them were smart enough early on. There was some nice psychology to the match. And then it was one of those things to where it got largely ignored. And this main event, compared to most of the rest of the card, felt like molasses in July. It was rough. Sting gets busted open with the bat. Mick Foley uses Mr. Socko with the barbed wire. Foley totally forgot that his leg was being destroyed early in the match. And then he climbs out and wins.
Yeah. The reason a lot of us didn't think Mick Foley was going to go over in this match is because Mick Foley hadn't been a regular wrestler in 10 years. And he kind of already reached that point where it's like, do we really need to see another Mick Foley match? Probably not. I think we were all happier with him not being in the ring and doing, stuff like outside the ring. Like he's doing the executive shareholder gimmick at this point, I believe. And he was tweaking things and, just being an on-screen personality. And then they decided they needed him to wrestle. And he took on Sting in a rematch from Beach Blast 92, which was, not only a match that's, he definitely made Sting look like a world beater in that match. It was also a match that, of course, that put Mick Foley on the map. Put Cactus Jack on the map as somebody that people should really take seriously, and eventually got his initial WCW push out of that, and which led on to many, many other things. As far as this individual match goes, I will just tell you that I expected worse. That's my level of praise for the match, is that I expected a lot worse going into this, because Mick Foley's broken down and Sting had his injury issues, so this felt like two guys that probably really shouldn't be in the ring at this point, whether with each other or with anybody else. But I thought they put together a decent enough match. That, like you said, they had the psychology, and they forget it from time to time, but they're old. Old people forget things. You can kind of forgive them for that. And the finish, he had Foley. It was the old win the match by escaping the cage gimmick, and which was also, well. Let's get back on this real quick. One thing that kind of bugged me was I think it was pinfall, submission, or escape the cage, right? They include pinfall and submission.
Yeah.
But so Foley at one point decides he's going to lock Sting in the Scorpion Deathlock, right? So he puts it on, and you got Earl checking on Sting. And I'm waiting for Earl to ring the fucking bell. Because he does that sort of thing when that holds on. But that didn't happen there. But then later, just a few minutes later, Sting goes ahead and puts Foley in the move. And Earl Hebner's just like staying there and staring at him.
It was really weird.
I'm just like, check the dude. Hello? I mean, I thought we had submissions counting here. Now, like, Earl Hebner's staring at him like all of a sudden he decided submissions no longer count in this match. It's like, one of those weird decisions that happened in this match, I suppose. But then he had to finish, of course, with them climbing out, and Foley got the climbing started, and Sting eventually almost caught him. But then Foley decides to take the flop to the floor right on his shoulder. I'm sure that felt good.
Yeah, speaking of thudding on something, man.
Man, rough.
So, yeah, that was the main event with the title change to Mick Foley. And
which led to a series of classic matches of which I remember none of.
Yeah.
And probably also didn't happen.
Yeah, it's like, and God bless Mick Foley. We're not trying to be assholes. Steve and I love Mick Foley.
We do. He one of our favorites back in the Attitude Era, man. Fantastic pro wrestler. A big part of a lot of my early fandom. But by the time 2009 rolled around, I was not interested. I'm sorry. Not my cup of tea.
So that wraps it up, Steve. Out of 10, what do you think? What would you give this show out of 10?
Out of 10. Let's see. I'm probably going to go a little bit higher than you might think. I'm going to go... I'm thinking about 6.5 because I don't want to quite go to 7. It doesn't quite feel like a 7. It's close to a 6, but I thought the Lethal Lockdown, Philadelphia Street Fight really carried things. You had that junior heavyweight tag team championship match, So there's and very few things on the show were actively terrible. I mean, even the Foley Sting match was better than I was expecting. So I can't really hate on it too much. Some of the gimmick stipulations sucked, but again, I can't really hold that against the workers.
No, you really can't. It comes down to the bookers. Yeah, I'm at about a good 6.0 on this. I thought it was a perfectly solid show. Again, the matches you mentioned, the Lockdown Street Fight Junior Tag Title match, I thought they were all good to very good. Sting and Foley, it was one of those, there was a lot of okay on this show. The only thing I thought was, I think the worst thing on the show was that the 4-way women's match that ODB won. It was just, it was not really good. And then Angelina Love, or that was a later match, but the problem with the ODB match is, again, like I said, Daphne was, God bless her, she had great charisma, wasn't a really good wrestler. Madison Rayne hadn't developed into a good wrestler at that time yet. And Sojo Bolt she wasn't horrible, but she was just there.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because for a lot of TNA's existence, the Knockouts division was one of the highlights. Yeah. You go back to with Awesome Kong and Gail Kim and a couple other stretches where they were usually one of the high points of the show. Unfortunately, I think the two lowest points in this particular show were the Knockouts, which kind of rare for TNA, really.
Yeah, back in the day, it really was. And obviously the title match got hurt because Angelina Love got injured. So, again, not like the total fault of the workers in that match. I mean, accidents happen, and it is what it is. Yeah, I go about a 6.0. You went 6.5, and the old cage match, which I had pulled up because I was looking at the attendance figure and stuff. The cumulative cage match rating is actually 7.32.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, I mean, so there you go. I mean, again, not a horrible show, not a totally skippable show. It's interesting, some of the choices they made. It's interesting to look back on and see, Naito working this pay-per-view, and, Hernandez in a junior heavyweight title match.
Yeah, I don't know about all that. I decided to look up Taylor Wilde on Wikipedia real quick, because why not? It turns out that we were speculating earlier I don't know if I should drop ages on the show or not. Is that okay?
If it's on Wikipedia, yeah.
34.
Really, yeah.
34, so nothing wrong with that. And she's been a full-time professional firefighter since 2015.
Yeah, I did know that. I didn't think.
And she's married to a firefighter as well, and they had a kid in April 2018.
Yeah, the reason I remember she had a kid too is it was rumored that she was going to be in the One Mae Young Classic.
Oh, okay.
And then she got pregnant, so was coming off the pregnancy and stuff, so that didn't happen. But yeah, she was rumored for the One Mae Young Classic. I didn't think she was over 35. So yeah, 34, that makes sense. And so yeah, it'll be interesting to see if maybe she pops back up. But yeah, it's TNA Lockdown 2009. It's again an interesting show. It's kind of fun back to look on some of this stuff and to see who was there, who's gone, and all that, and where everybody's gone off to. Again, Naito was just a little junior tag dude back in the day, and 11 years later, and he's the fucking king of New Japan right now.
Just goes to show you never know where the next star is going to come from.
That's right. And, Yujiro didn't do bad for himself either. He has Peter.
He does all right. He might not be the champion or anything, but he's done all right for himself. He's had that sweet Bullet Club gig for a while too, right?
That's right. Yeah, long time.
Getting that T-shirt money, man. Can't hate on that.
He was the first Japanese member of Bullet Club. He turned on Chaos.
How can you turn against those lovable Chaos scamps?
Oh, pretty easy, obviously.
Kind of story their faction, right? Everybody turns on them.
So, but yeah, Steve and I, we're going to be mixing in these retro reviews from time to time, and we will gladly take requests. Obviously, try to keep it to things that are free on the YouTube or obviously on the WWE Network, as they're both the most easiest thing for us to get. If you guys go through the Impact/TNA YouTube, if you find a full show on there and it interests you, I mean, throw it out there. We'll think about it. We have a couple things in mind for the next few, but again, we will always take suggestions because why not? It is your show as well. You guys are the listeners. And again, I find it fun to look back on some of this stuff, Steve.
I do as well, and it's fun to look back in the history of companies like TNA, because I think we get a lot of flack from people sometimes because we don't give them enough love these days. But back in the day, they had some good stuff, and we were talking about that good stuff back then as well before the rest of y'all came along.
Very much so. So, Steve, that is going to wrap us up for today. We'll be back Wednesday night to review AEW and NXT, probably talk some news, and also preview AEW Revolution taking place on the 29th. So we'll have a loaded show on Wednesday night. And again, thank you for your time, Steve.
Yeah, and I'm pretty excited. We got Pac and Kenny Omega coming up.
That's right.
That'll be good.
But yeah, my thanks to you. My thanks to Ian Hamilton from BackBodyDrop.com. My thanks to Mark Radulich for joining me on today's show. This has been the 411 on Wrestling Podcast. You can follow us on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Play, YouTube, the 411mania.com website, any major podcasting platform. Please make sure to subscribe to our show, share us around on social media, subscribe and leave us a thumbs up on the old YouTube channel. And until Wednesday night / early Thursday morning, this is Larry and Steve, and we will talk to you later.